Welcome back to the MHS channel. First, I'm very curious to know where you're watching from and at what time. Feel free to share in the comments below. Also, if you have any feedback or suggestions for how the channel can improve, don't hesitate to leave a comment.
I'm Buff, and my family just moved into this new house in the Virginia suburbs about 2 weeks ago. My folks said it was a fresh start for us after Dad's company went belly up. The house is way older than the one we sold in Chicago, but it's got this huge woods behind it, which for two kids, 15 and 10, like me and Ben, it was like finding a treasure map. This morning, Ben shakes me awake super early. "Buff, get up. I saw something in the woods. You won't believe how cool it is." I just groaned and pulled the covers over my head. "It's 6 in the morning, Ben." I saw a treehouse, a really awesome one, and big too, just like in the movies. I sat straight up, rubbing the sleep out of my eyes. "How do you know? Did you go into the woods by yourself?" "Not really. I just followed the trail a little bit and saw it from way back. Mom always told us never to go into the woods alone. But curiosity got the better of us, and after scarfing down some breakfast, we told Mom we were going to play in the backyard. Instead, we snuck into the woods. Ben was leading the way, all confident and pumped up. After about 15 minutes of winding around, the trail opened up to this small clearing. And there it was. It was built way up in this old oak tree, towering over everything, but it wasn't exactly what I'd pictured. The treehouse looked old and worn out, moss all over the roof, the wood walls faded and gray, and some spots looked like they were rotting. "Cool, huh?" Ben said. I nodded, but something felt off to me. We probably shouldn't go in there. But Ben was already heading for the ladder. "Just for a quick look." I hesitated. I should have just pulled him back, but I was curious too. We climbed up the ladder, and a few of the steps were completely gone. Ben pushed open the door, and we stepped inside. It was pretty roomy inside, with a small table, 2 chairs, and a bookshelf with a few old books on it. Light came in through 2 small windows. I touched the wood wall. It was rough, and looking closer, there were these letters carved into it. Danny. Looked like someone's name, maybe the kid who owned the treehouse. It was carved all over the wall, again and again. I don't feel good about this. We shouldn't be here. "Look at this," Ben exclaimed, totally ignoring my worry. He pulled open a drawer in the table and took out this small notebook. "A diary." "Don't touch other people's stuff, Ben. We should go." "June 2015, Ben read out loud. "June 15th. I found this treehouse today. It looks so awesome. Mom would be so mad if she knew I came this far, but I'm 13 now. The treehouse looks kinda old, but nobody's around. I'm gonna make it my secret hideout." Hearing Ben read the diary gave me the creeps. Another kid, years ago, had found this same treehouse, just as curious as we were. Ben flipped through a few pages. June 22nd. I spent all day in the treehouse, carved my name to make it mine. So Danny was probably that kid's name, I figured. Ben flipped faster, stopping at 1 page. July 1st. I think I saw someone today. A shadow outside the window. But when I looked out, there was nothing there. A breeze blew through the window, making the hair on my arms stand up. The room suddenly felt colder. July 7th. The treehouse won't let me leave. I've tried to go 3 times today, but I always end up back here. I go down the ladder, follow the trail, but then I turn around and I'm back at the treehouse door. The fog is so thick everywhere, I can't tell which way to go. I don't want to be here anymore. "Ben, we should go." Now I pulled Ben up. Right then, the treehouse door slammed shut. I jumped and pulled Ben close to me. It was probably just the wind, nothing to worry about. I ran to the door, twisted the handle, but it wouldn't budge. "What the heck?" Ben looked around, his eyes wide with panic. "Buff, the window!" I ran to the nearest window, pushed it, but it was stuck too. I pulled my phone out of my pocket, but there was no signal. Is anyone out there? Help us! I yelled, banging on the door. Ben tugged on my sleeve, his face pale. Look. I turned back, following where Ben was pointing. In the farthest corner of the room, where the light didn't reach, was this weird, dark shape. It wasn't moving. What is that? I couldn't answer. Fear had choked the words in my throat. I squeezed Ben's hand back, wondering if my own fear was making me imagine that shape. But then the light changed. A cloud passed, and sunlight streamed through a crack in the window, shining right into the corner of the room, and the shape was gone. There was nothing there, just a dark, moldy support beam and the uneven floorboards all eaten up by bugs, all just a trick of the light in our panic. I remembered Danny's diary. His mind must have been playing tricks on him too, making him see things. I ran back to the door, yanked hard on the rusty iron latch, and the door popped open. It had just been stuck. We scrambled down the ladder, Ben almost tripping. The two of us took off running back towards the trail. Once we were sure we were far enough away, I turned back to look. The treehouse was still there, quiet and lonely in the clearing, but now it didn't look so cool anymore. A few days later, I told my parents everything. Dad went out there himself and then called the town police, and they took the old diary. The police were skeptical at first, but after a few days, they called Dad back to confirm. The handwriting, the name, and even the dates matched the file of a missing person from 2015 that the town had on record but had never solved. When they compared the handwriting in the notebook to old school records, they were almost certain the diary belonged to Danny. We found the boy Danny's remains right behind the bookshelf. It's highly likely he couldn't find his way out of the woods. The bookshelf, the two of us had been standing right next to Danny's bones without even knowing it. The treehouse was torn down one gloomy afternoon. Nobody wanted to keep it around, knowing it held such a sad secret. And Ben and I never went back into those woods again. I'm Josh, the youngest of 6. My parents, my older brother Mark, my twin sisters Carol and Patricia, and me. My family was pretty well off since my dad was a lawyer and my mom was a dentist. The house I grew up in was full of sweet memories, love, and connection. Well, except for one person. Since I was a kid, I always noticed the special bond between my two older sisters. They were alike not just in age, but also in their interests and personalities. Every time I saw them hanging out and doing stuff together, I'd feel a little jealous. I thought me and my brother would be close like that too, but I was way off. No matter how hard I tried to get close to him, Mark always kept his distance, and I never really got why. I can totally remember all the times I tried talking to him, and all I got back were short, cold replies. He was nothing like the rest of the family. My curly brown hair like my dad's, and my straight nose like my mom's made me feel like I really belonged in the family. But my brother was different. With his fair skin, high nose, and blonde hair, he just didn't seem to have anything in common with the rest of us. Sometimes, I secretly wished I had blonde hair and a high nose like him, just so I wouldn't feel so out of place in my own family. As far back as I can remember, Mark hadn't lived with the family. Whenever he came home to visit, it was only for a little while, and then he'd leave pretty quick. I never got why Mark was always in such a rush, but what really bothered me was how my mom changed after each visit. My mom, who's usually strong and full of energy, couldn't hold back her tears every time she saw Mark leave. I couldn't help but wonder what happened between them that made Mom so unhappy. One time, when I was walking past the bathroom door, it was cracked open, and I saw Mark injecting himself. He was sitting in a dark corner, head tilted to one side, eyes all glazed over, and giggling weirdly with his mouth open. That feeling stuck with me. This fear I just couldn't make sense of. I could never forget how weird and unsettled Mark acted. The way he moved, his cold stare, It felt like a warning, and I just couldn't believe my brother was the one causing so much pain to our family. It was a Friday, and that weekend, my family had even planned a picnic. Patricia wasn't feeling well that day, so she skipped school. My mom was worried, so she skipped work too, and stayed home to take care of her. That day, when my dad drove Carol and me home from school, there was no hint that everything was about to change forever. The weak late afternoon sun was coming through the window. The air outside was a little cool, but inside the car, it was stuffy. I felt like there was this weird, bad vibe around me. The house when we got home felt different, not like any other time. Usually the door was wide open, you could smell Mom's cooking, and there'd be laughter and chatter coming from the living room. But today, it was quiet, like the house had been abandoned for ages. Dad turned on the light, called out for Mom and Patricia. Before I could even figure out what was going on, Carol yanked me close with a lot of force. She didn't say anything, but the way she acted made me feel anxious, and my heart started racing. Carol's hand shot over my eyes real quick. I wanted to fight it, to see what was going on, but the anxiety just froze me. Through Carol's fingers, I saw something awful. A dark red stain on the floor. It soaked into every carpet, every corner of the living room. I couldn't understand why this was happening. Dad's cries started echoing, so painful, like everything had just broken in an instant. My sister grabbed my hand tight, not saying a word, just sobbing in panic, totally not knowing what to do. Everything went quiet, but I could still hear Dad's choking voice, him gasping for air. The police showed up, and Dad agreed to let the medical team take Carol and me away first. In the ambulance, Carol almost passed out. She was crying so much. I could only sit next to her and hold her hand tight. The next day, Dad told me that Mom and Patricia had been murdered. I couldn't believe what I was hearing, so I kept asking my dad if it was true. Carol hugged me again and cried, calling out for Mom and Patricia over and over. I totally forgot about Mark until the police announced that he was the one who did it. I started feeling dizzy and numb all over. All the sounds around me just faded away, leaving only Carol's sobs and Mark's face in my mind. The brother I used to love and look up to, the one who I always wanted care and closeness from. Now he was the one who brutally tore our family apart. Later, my dad told me that Mark wasn't actually born to our parents. He was homeless, and my mom found him on the street. My parents, with big hearts, did everything they could to help and love Mark, but over and over he let them down. Not only did he take away my mom's trust, but he also took her life. "Why'd you repay our kindness with such cruelty, craziness, and inhumanity?" Carol said in court. I am Gray, 14 years old. I have just moved in with my grandmother because my parents are serving prison sentences. I had a younger brother, but he passed away when he was 3 months old. I can't clearly remember the last time I felt truly happy. My family was once financially well off, but everything fell apart when my mother's nursing license expired and my father was laid off from his job. We lived in a small house, devoid of warmth or cheerful conversations. Love gradually became a scarce and luxurious commodity in my family. I constantly had to face my parents' arguments at any time of the day. That made me feel fed up, tired, and suffocated every time I came home. Many times, I quickly brought my dinner to my room and locked the door before everything could be thrown to the ground. Sitting in my room, I put on my headphones, turned the music up loud, and started eating, not realizing when the tears started to fall. Since I was little, I've always felt a strong, burning smell in the house, especially in my parents' room. The smell made me uncomfortable and curious, but every time I asked about it, I only received cold stares and scolding. I didn't understand what was happening until I was old enough to realize that it was drugs. My parents were always dazed, their eyes vacant, smiling with no reason, and their actions out of control. I felt like a ghost in this house, always silently observing and never being noticed. The feeling of loneliness clung to me, even though I tried to find something, anything, from the place I called family. One day during dinner, my mother announced that she was pregnant. I screamed with joy, thinking that I would finally have a younger sibling, a companion. I no longer have to be alone, and maybe everything will change. However, my parents' reaction made me feel a strange sense of anxiety. My parents looked at each other with a confused gaze and a hint of discomfort. Anyway, I still hold on to the hope that everything will get better. During the first few prenatal visits, my mom always took me along. Although Dad stayed at home, he always said he was busy. When I found out I would have a little brother, my excitement doubled. I imagined moments of playing, talking, and how I would protect him. That was also the last time Mom went for a prenatal checkup, as far as I remember. The day my little brother was born, I couldn't believe my eyes. He was so tiny, fragile, with pale skin and red spots. I overheard the doctors telling my parents that my little brother was born addicted, and that his liver contained at least 2 types of stimulants. My mom and dad just stood there, indifferent, not showing any concern or sympathy. I wanted to get closer, but the nurse took him away. I couldn't do anything except stand and watch. My little brother was then adopted by another family as soon as he was discharged from the hospital, and my parents also underwent rehabilitation measures. The feeling of emptiness and disappointment returned. The house gradually lost its burnt smell, but the coldness couldn't be erased. Sometime later, my dad regained custody of my little brother after successfully completing rehab and passing the Child Welfare Agency's test. My mom also returned, and the family was reunited. I hoped deeply for a better future. That summer vacation, my parents signed me up for a camping trip a few hours' drive from home, which would last for 3 weeks. Although I didn't want to, not even a little, I was completely unable to resist. The first thing I noticed when I returned was that the house had a very unpleasant burnt smell again. My parents didn't even look at me, even though it had been 3 weeks since we last saw each other. I searched for my little brother, but I couldn't find him. Even his belongings were gone. I asked my parents many questions, but they just sat there staring at the ceiling with vacant expressions. That evening, the police came to the house and arrested my parents, leaving me in shock. My little brother had been neglected and passed away at the hands of my parents. I was taken to live with my grandmother to avoid the bad information and images. Still, I couldn't stop wondering about the lives of my little brother and me. Why were they so heartless? Why did we never receive the love that every child deserves? The story above is based on the true events of the couple Jessica and Daniel. Instead of building a happy family with a stable job as they once had, they became consumed by drugs. In 2018, Jessica discovered that she was unexpectedly pregnant. She didn't go for prenatal checkups during 2/3 of her pregnancy because she was afraid the doctor would find out that she had been using drugs. Even during labor, Jessica's face was emotionless, showing no sign of pain. That was an indication of the effects of drugs. As a result, their second son, Dylan, was born a month early, and it was discovered that his liver contained at least 2 types of drugs. This cruel couple neglected the child, causing Dylan's death, and chose to hide his body in an abandoned well next to the church. After several attempts, the police managed to retrieve an object consisting of 2 milk baskets secured together with 3 padlocks, 12 plastic ties, and 8 electrical wires. They were sentenced to life imprisonment without parole for Jessica and 47 years in prison for Daniel. Life is not without cases of child abuse and neglect, or parents who refuse to raise their children, and this is an act that is utterly reprehensible.
I'm Melvin, and I'm 17. I've lived with my grandparents and Aunt Sam since I was little, and I've never met my parents. I've always felt loved by my grandmother and Aunt Sam, but not by my grandfather. I feel like there's always been a gap between me and my grandfather that just can't be closed. He's never really shown me any words of care or loving gestures. When I was 10, I used to run home from the bus stop all excited. The sound of kids crying left me feeling really confused. When I walked into the living room, I saw my grandmother holding a baby wrapped in a blanket, and she was crying too. "Come here, Melvin. This is your little brother, Henry." I was really curious. As a 10-year-old, I had a lot of questions, like why I suddenly had a younger brother, and whether he was born by our mother, Carrie.
You're not allowed to ask questions that go against any instructions from adults.
My grandfather's voice sounded really annoyed when he heard my questions. Aunt Sam quickly pulled me over to see my brother, but I was in tears because I felt sorry for myself and didn't really feel anything for Henry. I stayed in the room that my grandmother said was my mom's room, and Henry stayed with my grandparents since he was too young. I asked my grandmother about my parents many times, but she just smiled with a red, tearful face. My grandmother always told me to keep the room just as it was, down to the smallest details. The picture showed a very young and beautiful woman, and my grandmother said that that was my mother, Carrie. I don't have any information about my father, and neither do my grandparents. I don't share many traits with my mother, but resemble my grandfather more, and I really don't like that. I've had insomnia since I was a kid, probably around 7 or 8 years old, because of all the different noises. Sometimes it was the laughter of kids, and other times it was the crying and scolding. I could never quite pinpoint where it was coming from. I told my grandmother everything because she always listened to me.
Stop making up stories and asking for things.
My grandfather's voice sounded annoyed when he overheard me telling my grandmother that the room needed better soundproofing. My grandmother didn't have much of a say in the house because she didn't work. The whole family relied on my grandfather's salary for all the expenses. I saw my grandfather get angry with her many times, even throwing away the dinner she had just made because she mentioned my mother. She wanted him to spend some money to hire a detective to find my mother, Carrie. My grandfather didn't seem to care about my mother, so I could kind of understand why he didn't show much love for my siblings and me. Because I was really afraid of my grandfather and didn't want to cause any trouble for my grandmother, I tried to put up with those noises for many years. Sometimes, hearing the laughter of the kids made me laugh too. I also have a younger brother, Henry, but we always had to follow my grandfather's strict rules, so we were all pretty closed off. As I grew up, I always planned to visit my mother and ask her why she didn't bring my brothers and me along, or why she never came to visit us. One day, the family dinner took a serious turn when my grandfather announced that he was at risk of losing his job. At night, I heard the two adults arguing about money and some illness, along with the sound of a child crying. I put a pillow over my ears, but I couldn't block out the annoying noise. It sounds like it's Grandpa. I sat up and walked around the room, trying to find a spot where I could hear the noise as clearly as possible. The woman's scream was really loud, and then the argument stopped. I had a lot of doubt about the man's voice. For almost a week now, the noise I've been hearing every night is a mix of a child crying and a woman's soothing voice. Of course I can't sleep. The child's crying might mean they're uncomfortable or sick. I know this from seeing my grandmother take care of Henry when he was little. She gently held Henry, comforted him, and sang him a lullaby with a worried and tired expression. A noise that sounded like a door opening came from right outside. I quietly went to open the door, and it was my grandfather. He must be thirsty. I figured that since there was a bathroom in my grandparents' bedroom, he wouldn't use the one in the living room. I followed him down to the living room, and instead of turning right to go to the kitchen, my grandfather turned left. I kept a safe distance so he wouldn't notice me and kept following him. My grandfather went into the basement. I waited until he was inside, then I hurriedly followed him. But by the time I got to the basement, my grandfather had disappeared. I walked around looking for him but couldn't find him, and I started wondering if I was dreaming. I decided to sit in a hidden corner and wait, and eventually I fell asleep. The sound like a lock made me jump awake. I was surprised when my grandfather appeared out of nowhere and left the basement. I didn't tell my grandmother, but decided to keep an eye on my grandfather for a few more days. For the next 3 days, my grandfather didn't do anything out of the ordinary and didn't go to the basement again. I was tormented by the sound of a little girl crying and the woman's constant cursing. In her scolding and cursing, she mentioned Mark, my grandfather. I grew more and more curious about my grandfather and was sure he was hiding some kind of secret. On the 4th night, I saw my grandpa pulling back a shelf in the basement, and it opened up to another basement behind it. While I was still in shock, my grandpa led a woman holding a little girl, and they both ran out of the basement in a hurry. The woman's face looked a lot like my mom's. I didn't really react, and I'm not sure what I was feeling at that moment. I just stayed in that corner of the basement until the next morning. The police, along with my grandparents, Aunt Sam, and the woman who looked like my mom, came back. With the police urging him on, my grandpa reopened the door to the other basement. 4 more people came out one by one, all calling the woman Mom and my grandpa Dad. My grandmother immediately collapsed and gasped. I ran over to hug her, and everyone was surprised. The strange woman looked at me, burst into tears, and called my name. The whole truth about my parents, the 2 people I had been longing to see for 17 years, was finally revealed. The noises I heard every night were from my mom and my siblings, who had been living in a dark, cramped basement. My mom had been imprisoned for 24 years by her own father, someone I didn't know whether to call Dad or Grandpa. I had 7 siblings in total. It should have been 8, but one of them died because my mom was abused while she was 7 months pregnant. My grandfather took Henry and me upstairs because the basement was too cramped and told us that my mom had abandoned us. I can't forgive the person who committed this terrible crime, but he did create my 7 siblings. Mother Carrie endured extreme physical and mental pain. Even though she hated the person who took away her future and happiness, she always said that she loved and protected all of us at all costs. I love my mom and my other siblings a lot, for I'm the lucky one. I've decided to move on and live a new, happy life with my grandmother, Mother Carrie, Aunt Sam, and my 6 siblings. But I never stopped wondering why my grandfather did such horrible things to his own daughter. The story is based on a real-life event about the tragic life of a girl named Elizabeth Fritzl. Her real dad is Joseph Fritzl, a messed up, creepy guy. He started abusing his daughter Elizabeth when she was just 11. When Elizabeth was growing up, She tried to run away from her monster of a dad a bunch of times, but it never worked. For 7 years, starting when Elizabeth was 11, Joseph started working on turning the basement into a prison. On August 28, 1984, when Elizabeth was only 18, he drugged her and locked her up in the dark basement. He raped her every day, and after 24 years, Elizabeth had 7 kids with him, going through unimaginable pain and humiliation. In April 2008, Joseph finally let his oldest daughter, Kristen, who was really sick, go to the hospital. From there, the truth came out, and the whole world saw the face of a monster.
My name's Pamela. I am 23 years old, the eldest of 4 siblings. I have a younger sister, Aurora, 17 years old, and 2 brothers, Vincent, 11 years old, and Peter, 6 years old. 4 of us are very close-knit. We genuinely love each other with all our hearts. Our parents always teach us about family values. One of them, the most important of them, is caring and forgiving. We resided in a small town around Fairfield, Alabama. I dropped out from college to go to work to support my family. We were facing tough time, made worse by my mother's sudden paralysis. She must use the wheelchair at all time and must rely on others' support. Her arms were gradually weakened as well. To my mom, seeing her family enjoying the dinner she cooked up had always been her life's ultimate goal. And yet, ever since her ailment, the light of her life became dimmer and dimmer. I had done many types of work, mostly part-time, so I could do multiple at once and could spend more time taking care of my mom. My 3 younger siblings were very understanding and would never throw a tantrum like many kids their age. After school, they would stay home and help with the chores. As my mom's condition gradually worsened, it was harder for her to do anything by herself, hence the need for us to leave her with a chiming bell so she could alert us if there's anything she needed. We all knew the drills. Bell ringing meant mom's needing. It's general quarter for all of us. After a while, my mom started to act strangely. She was easily agitated being alone. At that time, she would be very aggressive, cussing everything she could. My pops setting up an indoor CCTV system so we could monitor her every time she was alone. Many times we saw her pointing fingers and yelling. She demanded angrily that someone better left her family alone. Normally, after anger came fear. She would then plead that someone let us be in peace.
Who should I send? You said, here am I, send me.
Every time we're seeing my mom did that, it made me shudder because she was by herself and seemingly talking to herself the whole time. It's likely the ailments had taken their tolls on her mental health as well. It made us cry seeing her struggling like that, and every one of us could only do our best and pray and hope that it'd help her. There was one time when Pops got to work overtime, and so Mom's alone. I offered to go spend the night in her room to be sure she's okay. She declined, stating that there's something important must be done by her alone tonight. Around midnight, I was jolted awake hearing my mom's chiming bell. As the children was soundly sleeping, I decided to go to her room alone. Her door was half opened, so it didn't take me much to push it in, and seeing the unbelievable sight before me. My mom was standing on her 2 legs, right there over the opening window. After many years of paralysis, by some magical way, she was able to walk again. She let out to me a happy smile. I was happy too. It seems all the prayers to our Lord and Savior was finally answered. But as soon as I stepped in closer, I saw my mom lying on her bed. Okay, so who or what was standing on the windows? I looked at my mother on the bed, and my mother at the windows. What the? Suddenly, the window mother's gentle, happy smile turned into a sinister one. Even her teeth seemed to morph into inhuman, needle-sharp teeth, the one that I remembered from the dinosaur movies. I yelped aloud at the sight, only to wake up, panting. I suddenly stumbled back to my room, where my 3 siblings were still sleeping on their shared bunks. What a relief. It was all but a dream. As soon as I sat down, a loud bang could be heard from outside, and some hard object broke through our windows. The 4 of us sprang up and ducked behind the furniture. I grabbed Vincent and told him to phone Dad, telling him that we're under some kind of attack. I hugged Peter tightly. He's in a lot of panic, but bravely resisted crying about it. But when I looked over the window, it was my mom's wheelchair, broken into pieces. And the thing that broke open our window was, in fact, the device's front wheel. We rushed to her room on the 2nd floor. When we pushed the door in, my mom's at the window, smiling at us. I shuddered, thinking about the previous nightmare, despite my siblings' joy at her improvement. I moved quickly into my mom's bed and saw nobody was there, so the person there was indeed my mother. But before we were able to say anything, my mom had plunged herself out of the window. One more time, a loud bang was heard from outside. We were too stunned to move. We knew exactly what that bang was. Aurora cried out in pain, then fainted. I hugged Peter tightly, trying to shut his eyes and ears. Vincent came over Aurora. We couldn't comprehend what had just happened. The scene of my mom's bloodied corpse hit my pops hard. It's like a part of his soul left his body that day, never to return. He couldn't accept her passing, that my mom's deliberately left her family behind. He never again stepped foot into the bedroom again. Instead, went down to the couches in the living room. The 4 of us children, also haunted by my mom's action, dared not venture to the master bedroom ever again. However, I often heard my mom's chiming bell. At first, I thought it was just hallucinations from my fatigue and pain. But more and more the bell chimed, and I was unable to let it go anymore. At midnight, once again, the bell's chiming one more time. This time, Peter woke up as well, and he cried looking at me. "Mom's coming back for us, sis." What did he meant by mom's coming back for us? So I took him to the master bedroom. I turned on all the lights before going in further. Peter held my hands tight. I came over to my mom's chiming bell, then managed to shut it off. And at that point, I saw an old paper underneath it. I could read my mom's handwriting upon it. The pact with Satan. I read the contract with fear slowly building up, to the point that I unintentionally squeezed hard on Peter's little hand. I hugged Peter tightly upon finishing it. It made me shudder at the thought of my mom's thoughtless past. Now I understood why she had done things like that before. About 30 years ago, my mom and pop married, but they couldn't have any children. So mom made a pact with Satan, so that the 4 of us would be here, and we'll get a happy life. However, upon the contract, she must sacrifice the youngest child by the 7th birthday. My mom, of course, couldn't let that happen, and she used herself to break the contract. She always said that nothing could break apart the power of love. That's why I decided to keep the discovery hidden from my family. Nobody deserved to know about it. Make their hearts fat and their ears heavy, shut their eyes, and be healed. One day when I woke up, the 3 of us couldn't see Peter anywhere, until when we got to the backyard, whereupon we saw a small wooden crate. Inside that crate was Peter, huddled in fetal position, still asleep. I woke him up, only to have him said that he must have fell asleep upon finding this crate yesterday. Right now, I was in a lot of panic. I did not dare thinking of what would happen next. Just 3 days later, Peter would be 7 years old. In 3 days, Peter, my youngest brother, and the one I love the most, would turn 7. Every hour, every minute, it felt like a countdown clock was ticking in my head, and every tick was like a knife stabbing right into my heart. What I read in my mom's letter was still stuck in my head. The deal with the devil and the price she agreed to pay to have us. I would never forget how Peter looked at me when he glanced up from the wooden box in the backyard that morning. The innocent look on his face made me feel like I was being crushed. How was I supposed to protect him from something not even from this world? The next few nights, I didn't dare to sleep. I just lay there, listening to every little sound in the house. The night before Peter's birthday, my mom's bell rang again. This time, it didn't stop for a second. It just kept ringing, like someone was trying to warn me. I decided to confront it. I grabbed the bell, walked to the window, and screamed in frustration and hopelessness. I didn't know who I was calling to, but I begged for help. Anything that would save Peter. When I came back to the room, I saw Peter sitting in the middle of the bed, his eyes blank, and his mouth muttering something I couldn't understand. My whole body froze. Those words weren't Peter's. They were cold, eerie, and evil. I rushed to hug him, holding him tight, praying that my mom would help me again, like she had before. The next morning, when everyone woke up, Peter was completely normal. There was no sign of that awful night, but I knew it was just the calm before the storm. I stayed by Peter's side all day, never taking my eyes off him for a second. On Peter's birthday, I could feel the air in the house getting colder. This time, the bell rang loud, like each sound was a scream. I grabbed Peter's hand tight, my eyes fierce. If Satan wanted my brother, he'd have to go through me first. The whole house shook, the windows flew open, and the cold wind rushed in like knives cutting through flesh. I stood in front of Peter screaming as loud as I could. But then, I saw a warm light from the corner of the room. My mom appeared. She still had that gentle smile I remembered, her eyes full of determination. My mom reached out to me, like she was saying everything would be all right. Then she turned around, facing the darkness that was coming. Her light spread through the room, wiping out all the evil. When the light went out, my mom disappeared. Peter hugged me, crying his eyes out. I knew my mom had sacrificed herself one last time to protect us. I sat there, my hands shaking as I held the bell, tears falling nonstop. We had lost our mom for good, but she had saved our family. And I, no matter what, was going to keep my promise to protect Peter and the others, so nothing could hurt them again.
I'm Dante, 45 years old. I'm the sheriff of the Phoenix Police Department, Arizona. As a sheriff, I have undergone and dealt with every kind of case. Only the case of the abandoned house on the city's outskirts keeps haunting me and my colleagues. That was the winter of 18 years ago, in the evening when I was an investigator officer on the night shift. At midnight, there was a call at the department. I picked up the phone in a rush. That was the dispatcher. With a rather confused and urgent voice, he told me about the phone call he had had. A man with a calm tone called them. I just choked a few people, and now they aren't breathing. Then, suddenly, he laughed as if he were crazy. Number 13, McDowell Street. The man stated the address and then quickly hung up. My two colleagues and I immediately headed over to the address as we knew. When we got there, we saw it was a big house in a rich neighborhood. The house was dark and quiet. We knocked a bunch of times, but nobody answered or opened the door. In the end, we had to break a window so David, our smallest officer, could climb in and unlock the door from the inside. As soon as we got inside, our flashlight stopped working, even though it was fine just a few seconds ago. We felt an intensive smell like fish in the air. On the floor, there was a sticky liquid. After fumbling around for a bit, we finally found the light switch. When the lights came on, we saw a horrifying scene. A layer of dark red blood was on the floor, spreading and soaking into the expensive fur carpet. We searched the whole house but didn't find any unusual signs or the odor. According to the investigation, this house belongs to a wealthy couple named Thomas and Daria. They have 2 kids together. After examination, they concluded that the blood on the floor was enough for 5 or 6 adults. However, Mr. Thomas's family has 4 people and 2 young children. The neighbors around insisted that this fancy house had been empty for about a month. Our team worked for 3 months and still didn't find any clues or bodies. We couldn't track down the location of the person who called the police that evening. The case eventually hit a dead end, but my colleagues and I didn't give up. The Thomas family's house was sealed off for further investigation. A month later, the police got a call saying the door of the house had been opened. We also got a lot of reports from the neighbors saying they heard occasional laughter coming from the house. The investigation team showed up right away. When we walked into the house, we all heard kids laughing. Following the laughter, we went upstairs and found a glowing toy car. One of my colleagues said he must have just seen that car on the first floor. We all just stood there, looking at each other with confused and suspicious expressions. The house still doesn't show any other unusual signs. One evening, the police got a report that some kids coming home from school saw light on the 2nd floor of house number 13. This time, we confirmed that someone was still living in the house. We armed, just in case. When we entered the house, we quickly checked the 1st floor and then headed up to the 2nd floor. Suddenly, all the lights on the 2nd floor turned on, and it startled us. At that moment, David seemed like he was in a trance. He sprinted toward the stairs and jumped down, surprising everyone. As soon as David landed, the gun in his hand went off with a loud bang. My remaining teammates and I looked at each other, totally shocked. When he got to David, he was lying face down in a big pool of blood, with a gaping hole in his head. David's sudden and bizarre death left me and the rest of the team in shock. Rumors about house number 13 on McDonald's Street started spreading everywhere. The house was even more tightly sealed off. A few months later, when the investigation had stalled, neighbors told us a strange man was living in the abandoned house. When we arrested him, that guy kept insisting he had Mr. Thomas's permission to move in. So Mr. Thomas isn't dead after all. The investigation team has reopened the case about his family. The guy living there was named Leon. He said he was a longtime friend of Thomas. But when we asked him about Mr. Thomas's family, Leon said that Thomas and his wife had divorced a long time ago and that he was now single. We started to have doubts about what this guy was telling us. After carefully searching the whole house again, we found a big wooden box buried deep in the basement. Inside the wooden box were the mostly decomposed bodies of a woman and 2 small children. After examination, it was confirmed that the bodies were Mr. Thomas's wife and 2 kids. We showed Leon the photo to see if he could identify Mr. Thomas, the so-called longtime friend. He said that he had many similar features to his friend, but his features were much more youthful. He pointed out that his friend Thomas had a big mole at the end of his left eyebrow, but this guy didn't have that. I looked up Thomas's family records and found out that his dad and grandpa were also named Thomas. The case of the house at 13 McDowell Street turned into a confusing mess and became a murder that shocked the whole country at the time. That guy named Leon hanged himself in house number 13 just 3 days later. All investigation work on the case has been on hold to this day. The members of our investigation team that year still remember our unlucky teammate David and hope that one day they'll find clues to solve the case.
I'm Carrie, the third child in a large family in California. In total, there were 10 of us siblings, but there used to be 11. Our oldest brother unfortunately left us when he was very young, a loss that my mother always held in her heart. I grew up in a family where every relationship was complicated and hard to understand. My mother gave birth to her first son when she was only 14 years old, and the man who became her husband was someone who had a close familial relationship with my mother's family. The entanglement wasn't just in bloodlines, but also in how the head of the family ran everything. From a young age, my siblings and I lived in an extremely closed-off environment. When I turned 12, the whole family moved to a bigger house. Everyone hoped it would be a new beginning, but then we realized it was just a place for him to control everyone even more tightly. The house was like its own world, where every action had to follow unusual rules. We weren't free to communicate, weren't allowed to share feelings, and were separated into different living areas. The brothers lived in the west area, while my mother and the daughters lived in the east. Talking, playing, or even seeing each other was limited. I tried many times to speak up, to show my disagreement with those imposed rules, but that only got me into more trouble. His reactions were always very strict and unpredictable. During those times, I felt extremely alone, because no one in the house was brave enough to speak the truth. It seemed like they were caught in a cycle of fear and resignation. When I turned 15, the strange behaviors from the head of the family started to become clearer. He spent more time around the area where my mother and sisters lived than what was normal. Even what clothes I wore wasn't my own decision. I once heard my mother quietly begging him to keep his distance from the children, but that plea didn't seem to be heard. I understood that I needed to be stronger than ever. Over the next 3 years, I did everything I could to keep myself safe and protect my younger sisters. It wasn't an easy time, both physically and mentally, but I was determined not to let those boundaries be crossed again. When I turned 18, I decided to leave that place. In the darkness of the night, I ran away and reported everything I had witnessed and experienced to the police. I knew that, as an adult, my words might be trusted more. But what broke my heart was that all my siblings denied it. They praised him as an ideal father. I understood that they had been deeply psychologically affected, like being imprisoned not just by doors, but also by their own minds. I moved to another town, working at a McDonald's, almost a 2-hour drive from home. Even though I lived in a cramped and humble room, it was the first time I felt true freedom to live authentically, to decide my own life. I still kept in secret contact with one younger sister, the one I always worried about the most. Every message from her was a small ray of light in the darkness of my past life. And then, one day, she texted me, "Sister, I'm so scared. He's completely lost control." At that moment, I knew it was time to go back. I immediately reported to the police and returned home. When I arrived, I saw a large number of law enforcement officers already present at the old house. Inside, there was shouting, chaotic sounds, and extreme tension. I screamed out the names of my siblings, my heart feeling like it was breaking. A moment later, the space fell silent. The door burst open, and he stepped out, quietly, with an appearance that astonished everyone. That calmness was in complete contrast to what had just happened inside. After the incident, the police conducted a thorough investigation. What they discovered went far beyond any initial assumptions. In that house, there were many signs of extreme control that had lasted for decades. Many of my family members had lived in a deep cycle of trauma, which even now is difficult to put into words. Marcus Wesson, that man, was once known as a father, a normal citizen. But in reality, behind those doors was a perverted world, hidden by a calm exterior. Even now, I still wake up in the middle of the night and feel like I'm still living in that house. But then I realize I got out. and I will find every way to help my siblings find their own paths, even if it's late. The story above is based on a true crime that occurred in California. Marcus Wesson, a man with the appearance of a normal person, concealed a life full of perversion and extreme control. When the truth about the life behind the curtain was revealed, he was not only a cunning individual, but also the leader of a group with signs of a perverted cult. The city's police chief called it the most painful and shocking case they had ever witnessed. The dream of a loving father is normal for children, but for the Wesson family, the father became the biggest ghost in their memories, robbing them of their freedom, happiness, and even the lives of innocent children.
I'm Charles, 34 years old. I'm an embalmer at a funeral home in Austin, Texas. Having been working here for nearly 7 years, I witnessed countless bodies being brought in, from older folks to little kids, from natural causes to tragic accidents. Doing this job really takes nerves of steel. Everything was going fine until one night. I was working an overnight shift at the office. I answered the phone, and the police asked me to take in the body of a woman who had drowned. Hearing about accidents involving women and kids makes me feel really sad. 20 minutes later, they brought the body to my place. 2 staff members and I drove over and brought the body down. I asked them why the girl was so heavy, but no one paid attention to that. The 2 drivers quickly finished their work and left. I moved the body into the morgue and started checking the info and identifying it. The white towel covering the body was soaked in a light red liquid. Even though I've done this a bunch of times, I still get really scared and nervous. When I pulled the towel down, I almost collapsed. The body had a messed up face, rotting flesh, and even made a bubbling sound. Even though it was really quiet, I could still hear it clearly in that silent space. It took a few minutes to get everything sorted and calm myself down. I picked up pen and paper from the ground and approached the body. That wasn't the body of a woman, and she didn't die from drowning. I quickly jotted down what I saw and headed back to the office. I couldn't get in touch with the police who handled the body or the 2 drivers. As soon as I left the room, I heard footsteps. I immediately shouted, "Who's there?" There was no response, and I didn't hear any footsteps. There were no signs of a break-in, too. I'm sure about the sound I heard earlier. I became more alert and got back to work. When I got to the body, I froze. The way the body was lying and the white towel had shifted from how it was originally. I forgot to take a photo when I got it, so I'm not sure. I took the camera and checked the body. The police told me that belonged to a girl. I wanted to disprove it. Seeing his rotting face, rough skin, and the smell of blood mixed with something like acid, I quickly looked away. I took a deep breath to steady myself. I noticed that his clothes were all messed up and way too tight for his tall body. The underneath part of the corpse was mostly intact, with just a few scratches. After jotting down the details, I went back to the office. Suddenly, the phone rang. The police called, I guess. Actually, it was a family looking to book a funeral service for a loved one who had passed away from illness. When the call ended, I headed to the bathroom and heard a slight moan. I held my breath to listen, and I actually heard a groan. I rushed out of the bathroom and walked around the lobby and the nearby hallways, but there were no signs of break-ins or anything unusual. I checked every corner one more time before heading back to the morgue. I panicked when I saw the corpse had disappeared. I wish I had a way to show you how I felt back then. A body went missing. Honestly, in almost 7 years on the job, I'd never come across something like this. I had a chaotic question running through my mind at that time. With my legs shaking, I ran through the hallways and rooms searching for that body. My fear kept getting worse and worse, and I felt like I was about to lose control. I rushed back to the office intending to call the police, but the phone line was cut, and the scissors were still on the table. My cell phone and wallet were gone too. There was a bit of blood on the table that went all the way to the window. I was even surprised that the window was open. I quickly ran to the nearest house and asked them to call the police and let them know what was going on. When the police showed up, they told me they'd found a drowned girl's body on the trail behind the morgue. I felt like I went from level 10 to level 100 in confusion. While I was talking to the police at the funeral home, one of them got a call. Death row inmate Gary escaped from prison just a few hours ago. They found the prisoner's clothes in a vial of acid hastily buried behind the prison. Gary stole my phone, but he didn't realize it had a location tracker. The police caught him a few days later. Gary's deformed face is seriously infected, and the awful smell makes him look like something out of a horror movie. He admitted that he messed up his face on purpose so the police wouldn't be able to identify him. Then he pretended to be dead so he'd be taken to the funeral home and could try to escape. The two drivers also got in trouble for their careless work. What happened was not something creepy and horrifying. To me, it was ironic that after nearly 10 years in the job, I still couldn't tell the difference between a dead body and a living one. I beat myself up about it for a long time and promised I'd never make such dumb mistakes again.
I used to be a criminal detective, familiar with chasing criminals through the dusty streets of New York. But now, I sit in a small room, my ears filled with urgent calls through the 911 dispatch center. This is a punishment, or at least that's what my superiors call it. I made a mistake, a hasty arrest, and acting alone led to a case that wasn't fully solved. They sent me here to learn how to listen. 911, how can I help you? I pick up the phone, my voice monotonous after hours of non-stop calls. On the other end, a woman's voice hesitates.
Hello, I just wanted to talk for a moment. Are you okay?
I furrowed my brows. This is an emergency line, ma'am. Are you in trouble?
No. I just want to know if you're okay.
She says, laughing in a way that sounds out of place, as if trapped between a joke and panic. I glance at the clock. Only a few minutes left until my shift ends. I sigh. Ma'am, if this is not an emergency, I'll have to. A man's voice suddenly cuts in, commanding.
Get in the car, quickly.
I freeze. Are you in danger? Please answer yes or no. She chuckles as if I've said something absurd.
Maybe yes.
I sensed something was wrong. Tell me your location. Do you see any street signs, shops, or anything? There's a moment of silence, only the sound of wind through the phone. Then, she whispers, barely audible, as though afraid someone might hear.
I don't know. If I get in the car, then I will.
My heart races. Stay on the line. I signal to my colleague next to me, quickly redirecting the call to the patrol team. The man's voice returns, urgent and commanding. I grip the phone tightly, picturing the woman in my mind. We're sending people. Don't let them suspect. She doesn't answer, but I hear the man shout, followed by the sound of a car door slamming. The call disconnects. Soon after, I receive a message from an anonymous number. Thank you for doing your role well tonight. I freeze, realizing I've been played. They didn't just disrupt the system, they led me into a trap. As I'm processing this, my colleague Jake rushes in, informing me of a kidnapping in the East City Park. A group of criminals took a child, and the patrol team was misdirected due to a fake signal. I dig through the call data and find out the group had hacked into the system, redirecting their calls to my 911 center. Step by step, I realized they had been watching me for a long time. carefully preparing to exploit any weaknesses. Just as my mind swirls with information and emotions, I get a call on my personal cell.
Head west to the forest, 10 miles, to the abandoned house. Go alone, remember.
It's the woman's voice from before, and the phone disconnects before I can respond. Jake asks if I'm okay, and I tell him to monitor the information. I'll request support if needed. I drive 20 minutes to the location they gave me, my mind on fire. Upon entering the abandoned house, I realize this isn't just a hideout. It's a hub for illegal transactions. Hidden cameras are mounted at corners, the doors are reinforced, and a small control panel with modern electronics sits in the middle of the room. The sound of footsteps from upstairs makes me stop. Instinctively, I move slowly toward the living room. There, a woman sits in a chair with a small gun in hand. She must be the one who called me. A sense of unease starts to creep in. Where are the rest of her gang? I glance at the screen on the control panel. The security camera feed shows clearly. 2 of her associates are upstairs, seemingly busy ransacking the place or preparing to escape. One is standing near a window, holding a phone, likely in contact with someone. My gut tells me there's not much time left. They'll quickly realize I'm here and find a way to stop me, even destroy me. In a sudden move, I throw the flashlight at the woman, distracting her. I rush forward, disarming her before she can open fire. From upstairs, the sound of hurried footsteps comes down. I hear a man's angry voice. "What's going on?" I drag the woman toward the door, using her as a shield as the 2 other men charge down the stairs. They freeze when they see her subdued. "You won't get away," one of them roars, but I hear the sound of police sirens in the distance. They point their guns at me and fire repeatedly, regardless of their own safety. In their frantic, reckless gaze, only selfishness and anger remain. I quickly pull the woman under the table to shield from the gunfire, but I'm too slow. One bullet hits her in the stomach, and her painful scream echoes. Immediately after, another bullet pierces my arm, the sharp pain spreading, making my whole arm go numb. The SWAT team rushes in, arresting the entire group. The sound of the child crying fills the air. I freeze, a familiar sensation coursing through me. "Vincent!" I call out my son's name involuntarily. The child cries while calling for his father, and my heart tightens as the door is broken open, revealing my son tied up in the corner of the room. After the case is concluded, I spend the whole night reviewing what happened. A sense of unease creeps in as I look at the files and equipment retrieved from the abandoned house. Among them is a list of names, addresses, and detailed financial information. Each line of text clearly appears under the desk lamp's light, and one name stands out: the leader of the human trafficking ring I had dismantled 5 years ago. Turning through other documents, I see scrawled notes describing a detailed plan. They had been watching me for a long time, recording my habits, work, and even my family. Red circles on a map of New York City mark areas where they once had operations. At the bottom of the stack, an old, slightly blurred photo shows a dark room with victims bound. I recognize it as the warehouse where they used to hide people before I took down their network all those years ago. When checking the hard drive of the computer, I find short video clips. One of them shows me working at the 911 dispatch center, secretly filmed from a distance. Another video records my family at a park. Details slowly reveal the full picture. They are remnants of the case I once handled. The woman, Marlene, is the mastermind who took over after her late husband's death. He had been taken down by me when the investigation team discovered him. This plan not only aims to continue their illegal activities, but is also a way to get revenge on me. They want me to experience fear and helplessness, just like what they felt when their whole network was destroyed years ago. Even though the case is over, the haunting never lets go. The images in the files, the woman's eyes as she was restrained, and the child's screams still echo in my head every night. I proposed the formation of an in-depth investigation team focused on tracking down the remaining members of the organization. Though I know this fight won't be easy, I feel a stronger resolve than ever. I must end this threat once and for all.
My name is Ethan. I live alone in a small town in the southern United States. My work takes up a lot of time in a day. I have to leave the house at 8 a.m. and return at 7 p.m. The area around my house was quite empty until the last few months. A family of a young couple and their daughter moved in. They weren't very friendly, so I only greeted them briefly in some first meetings. When I came home from work in the evening, I saw a little girl sitting on the side of the road wearing thin clothes in the cold winter. After a few questions, I realized that the girl was the child of a young couple next door. The girl was about 5 years old, shivering, her eyes fixated on the ground. When she heard me ask, she just looked up, looked at me with innocent, puffy eyes, and did not answer. I was about to help her stand up, but suddenly her mother's scolding sound came from afar. She is Kate, about 35 years old, with a thin body and some bruises on her face. I greeted Kate in a friendly manner, but she ignored me. She roughly pulled her daughter into the house and scolded her repeatedly, causing her to cry in fear. That night while I was sleeping, the sound of the couple arguing and a loud cry of the neighbor's daughter woke me up. This wasn't the first night like that. Since they moved in, I was often bothered by loud arguments. I'm quite uncomfortable. It's been a long day of work, so I really want to rest. But it's a private matter of their family, so I'm not feeling comfortable about reminding them and instead choose to keep quiet. The frequency of the couple's arguments is increasing. They use harsh words and insult each other. Sometimes there is a mother's yelling at her daughter, followed by her loud crying. I feel sorry for her when she has to live in such an environment. A few days later, that house felt strangely quiet. They must have resolved their conflicts, I thought. Another evening, I came home later than usual. On the dirt road leading to the house, I saw Kate's daughter again. This time she dressed more warmly. The little girl no longer sat with her head down, holding a toy shovel and diligently digging down the dirt road. I approached her and gently asked her what she was doing here. Her face was much brighter. Her innocent voice answered me, "I dig graves to bury people." That innocent voice told me that I was following my mother's actions the previous evening. I looked towards the neighbor's house in fear. Kate's figure standing in the door startled me. Her eyes were sharp and a bit angry. Kate slowly approached, pulled her daughter's hand, and went into the house without saying a word. Early the next morning, I heard loud crying and a very strong banging on the door. Hurrying to open the door, I saw a little girl with messy hair and disheveled clothes crying loudly while pointing towards her house. A series of questions arose in my mind. Walking towards the house, I immediately felt a cold chill run down my spine. In the house's messy living room, Kate hanged herself, her body floating, her face pale. I felt like my body was frozen shut, so scared that I couldn't move. My mind went all blank, my ears were ringing. The girl's cry pulled me back to reality. Immediately, I smelled a terrible stench. Taking the girl back to my house, I quickly called the police. After investigation, the police concluded that Kate's death was due to her hanging herself. Even more horrifying, they discovered Kate's husband's body buried behind the garden. The body was determined to have been dead for about 5 days and was decomposing. Kate herself attacked and murdered her husband, and then she ended her own life. Kate's daughter fell asleep in my arms because she was tired. Looking at the poor girl, I felt sorry for her unhappy childhood and having to witness so many terrible things. The girl was taken to live with her aunt in rural California, 300 kilometers from her old home. I think her parents' married life is not happy. The bruises on Kate's body are most likely caused by her husband's violence. Kate only acted spontaneously when she murdered her husband, due to the life of too much pain and repression she had endured in the past.
I am Maddie, 32 years old, and I live near my family in Houston. I'm not the type of person who gets paranoid easily, but after what happened, I can't step into a grocery store without checking my surroundings at least 3 times. It happened last year when I took my twin niece and nephew, Heather and Merlin, just 3 years old, to Costco. My sister had work to do, so I agreed to watch them for the afternoon. I wasn't a mother, but I thought, this should be easy. They're just 2 adorable kids. I can handle this. I was wrong. Taking 2 3-year-olds into a supermarket is like trying to control a pair of hyperactive kittens. I strapped them into the double shopping cart, trying to keep things under control as I navigated the aisles. The kids chattered away, pointing at everything, while I focused on getting in and out as quickly as possible. And then, I noticed her. A middle-aged woman with curly blonde hair, wearing a long beige coat. She stood at the end of the aisle, staring at me and the kids. At first, I assumed she was just absent-mindedly looking in our direction, but when I moved to the next aisle, she was there again, still standing, still watching. That's when I started to feel uneasy. I tried to ignore her and continued shopping, but a few minutes later, as I turned to grab a carton of milk, she was suddenly right behind me. She smiled. They're adorable. I forced a polite smile. Thank you. Then she tilted her head, staring at the kids with an intensity that made my skin crawl. They must be twins, right? I've always loved twins. Such beautiful children, like little angels. I nodded, my only thought being, get out of here now. But then she asked a question that made me freeze. Where are their parents? Or are you watching them alone? I tried to keep my voice steady. They're with me today. I'm their aunt. Her smile widened, something unsettling in her expression. Oh, really? So no one else is with you? Every instinct in me screamed that something was very, very wrong. I immediately turned the cart around and said, Sorry, we have to go. And that's when I saw him. At the end of the aisle, a man leaned against a shopping cart. He wore a black hoodie with the hood pulled low over his face. He was pretending to look at his phone, but his eyes never left me. I had no doubt now. This was a setup. I gripped the cart handle tightly, forcing myself to stay calm. Don't run. Don't panic. Stay in control. I pretended not to notice him, instead smiling at the kids and speaking loud enough for those nearby to hear. All right, kids, let's go find Mommy. I turned the cart and walked straight to the checkout area, where there were more employees and other shoppers. I didn't look back, but I could feel it. The woman and the man were still watching me. At the register, I kept my voice natural but firm. Excuse me, could you call security? I think someone is following me and these children. The cashier's expression changed immediately. Within a minute, a security guard arrived. I quickly explained what had happened, and he nodded, saying he'd check it out. I waited near the exit, my heart pounding, gripping the shopping cart tightly. The woman was nowhere in sight. The man had disappeared too. A few moments later, the security guard returned, his face tense. You were right. We checked the security cameras. She followed you from the moment you entered the store, and so did that man. The second I started heading toward them, they both left. I immediately called my sister, telling her to come pick up the kids and swearing I would never take them out alone again. That night, I did some research and found something I will never forget. Human traffickers often target women who are alone with children. They watch, looking for someone distracted, especially with young kids. They wait for a moment of vulnerability, and in just a few seconds, a child can be taken and disappear forever. I don't know what would have happened if I hadn't noticed something was off, if I had been just a little slower. But I know one thing for sure. If you ever feel like someone is watching you or your child, don't ignore that feeling. I can still picture that night, freezing cold, right after Thanksgiving, when the empty highway turned into the last place I ever wanted to be. Leaving my grandma's house after a long day with family, my coat still smelled like turkey, pumpkin pie, and apple cider. It was pitch dark, and the only thing lighting up the road ahead was my headlights, casting shaky shadows of the trees. The suburban Pennsylvania roads felt weirdly quiet, like the later it got, the more it became its own little world. I didn't even notice my mistake. Somehow my gas tank had hit empty before I had a clue. I grumbled under my breath, half scolding myself, half hoping my car would magically make it to a gas station. Just when I thought I might be in the clear, the engine sputtered, coughed, and then dead silence. The car rolled a few more feet before giving up completely. I was completely stuck with no clue what to do. I wasn't about to call anyone for help. I just had to figure this one out on my own. I made up my mind to walk to the nearest gas station. I locked the car, shoved the key in my pocket, and stepped out. I looked around, dead silent, almost too quiet. The only sound was my footsteps crunching against the road. The flashlight on my phone barely lit up the path, just enough to see where I was going in the freezing night. The road felt endless. I checked my watch. Every minute dragged on like forever. The wind howled past my ears, trees casting shaky shadows in the dark, making everything feel even more off. A truck pulled up right next to me. The window slid down, and a middle-aged guy leaned out. The headlights hit his face, gaunt, tired-looking eyes, and a scruffy beard that hadn't seen a razor in ages. "Need a ride?" His voice was rough, like he hadn't spoken in a while. I shook my head, thanked him, and said I was almost at the gas station. He smiled. Something about it felt off. "It's freezing, and that's a long walk. Come on, hop in. I'll get you there in no time." I hesitated, but he kept insisting, saying it was far and not safe to be walking alone this late. I started second-guessing myself. After a few seconds of debating, I figured a quick ride would get me out of this mess faster. Inside the truck, the thick smell of cigarettes and engine oil hit me, making my stomach turn. He flicked on the radio, but instead of music or news, all I heard was static. Then he started mumbling. I couldn't make out much, but every now and then I caught words like God, salvation, and sin. I tried to stay calm, locking my eyes on where the gas station lights should be, but all I saw was darkness. The thick, uneasy silence in the truck stretched on for probably around 10 minutes. Then I spotted the gas station up ahead, and relief washed over me. But instead of pulling in, he drove right past it. I tried to stay positive. Maybe he just didn't notice it. "Hey, you just passed it." I tried to sound casual, but my voice was tight. He didn't answer. His grip on the steering wheel tightened, and the truck started picking up speed. "Shut up." His voice was low, sharp, almost a growl. "You're gonna do exactly what I tell you." A wave of cold fear crashed over me. I darted a glance at the door handle, yanked on it, locked. I turned to look at him, forcing my voice to stay steady. "I don't want any trouble. Just stop the car and let me go." He sneered, eyes flashing with something unhinged. "You don't get it. This isn't about what you want." I knew I couldn't wait. As the truck turned a corner, I saw my chance. With everything I had, I swung and punched him square in the face. He let out a scream, the truck swerved, and we crashed straight into a ditch. I slammed hard against the door. When the dust settled, I saw him slumped over the steering wheel, completely out cold. I didn't waste a second. Ignoring the pain, I kicked at the door over and over, shoving it with everything I had. Finally, it burst open, and I took off, sprinting down the dark road, too scared to even glance back. After what felt like an eternity, I spotted the glow of the gas station up ahead. I stumbled inside, gasping for air, barely able to get a word out as the clerk stared at me, wide-eyed. All I could manage was, "Please, call the cops." The police showed up and found the guy still slumped over in the truck, completely out. Turned out, he had a history of mental illness. This wasn't his first time causing trouble. I was lucky to get away, but that night never really left me. Every time I drove down that highway, I could feel it, like someone was watching me from the shadows, their cold stare cutting through the windshield. And I promised myself, never again, no matter what, would I ever take a ride from a stranger.
I'm Aiden, and I've just returned after more than 3 months of treatment for psychological trauma from a psychiatric hospital. The cause of everything started with the girlfriend I fell for at first sight, Agatha. She is 3 years older than me, a woman of extraordinary beauty who made it impossible for me to look away. She had large eyes, a small face, long, shiny blonde hair, and a perfectly proportioned figure. I don't know how many times I silently thanked God for meeting and having Agatha. Not only was Agatha beautiful, but she was also very friendly, kind, and an excellent cook. I really wanted to quickly organize a wedding with her, and was incredibly excited, imagining our future daughter. But nothing is perfect. Agatha had a very strange and incomprehensible flaw. She always criticized her own body. I completely understood when a girl complained about being overweight or being unhappy with a certain part of her body. But with Agatha, it wasn't just insecurity. She hated herself. Agatha always used terrible words to describe herself, to the point where I imagined her as a monster. "Agatha, you are the most beautiful woman." "No, Aiden, look at me," she interrupted. "These eyes, this nose, are so redundant and ugly. Even these feet, too. There are many people who are not as lucky and well off as us. Stop those silly thoughts. I'm serious." Seeing that my attitude was quite tense, Agatha stood up and left. I really love Agatha, but the more I love her, the more I can't understand her. Things won't be so scary when everything stops at words. Agatha gradually lives the role of a disabled person in a happy and enjoyable state of mind. She is no longer meticulous about her appearance, does not wear makeup or hair. Instead, her face is tightly attached to a pair of sunglasses. Agatha groped everything and asked for help from me because she thought she was blind. Furniture in the house is constantly falling apart and getting damaged. From surprise and helplessness, I gradually turned into discomfort and anger. But Agatha ignored everything. I was even more shocked when I read Agatha's search history. How to remove eyes quickly and with the least pain. Immediately, I pulled Agatha's hand into the dressing room, took off her sunglasses, and let her look straight into the mirror. "Look! Why did you make yourself so pathetic?" I continued to turn on my phone, which had a beautiful picture of Agatha as the wallpaper. "Do you remember how beautiful you used to be?" Agatha remained silent, staring into the mirror for a long time, and then
slowly closed her eyes and groped her way out. I wanted to scream out loud. If I could, I'd love to see what on earth was going through that small mind of hers. In the following days, I tried to convince Agatha to see a doctor. I was sure my girlfriend was dealing with some kind of mental issue. Agatha would refuse to talk if I mentioned seeing a doctor, and she would even stop eating. I tried to handle it by inviting the doctor to our house, but she locked herself in her room and refused to meet with him. That evening, Agatha and I sat down to have a serious conversation with each other. I'll be going on a business trip for a week. Will you be okay? Of course. It is not the first time you've gone on a business trip, Aiden. Agatha, you know what I'm trying to talk about. Is that really your purpose in life? Agatha looked at me and remained silent. My purpose and dream is to have a happy family with you. I've always imagined a future where we have a daughter as beautiful as you. But Agatha, please, I interrupted her. Please, tell me what your real dream is. I wish I didn't have these eyes. My girlfriend's words felt like a heavy force tightening around my heart. I hate having to see everything, Aiden. I turned and walked into the office, and that entire night, I thought deeply about everything that happened. The next morning, I left the house early to go on my business trip. I left Agatha a handwritten letter asking both of us to reflect on everything and have another conversation when I returned. Throughout the week, I was on my business trip. There were no calls or messages from Agatha. I called her several times, but all I received were a few superficial words. I secretly installed cameras in the living room and bedroom without Agatha knowing. I knew that what I was doing was wrong, but I couldn't bring myself to leave her alone. Agatha's crazy actions, pretending to be blind, continued to increase over time, which stressed me out immensely. My insomnia was also getting worse day by day. On the 5th night of my business trip, unable to sleep, I looked back at the happy photos of me and Agatha, and I cried. A notification came through from the camera app, and I immediately pressed to view it. The screen switched to the app interface, and Agatha's painful screams echoed loudly, causing me to jump up in shock. She didn't appear in the frame, but the sound of her screams and the chaotic scene in the room made me panic. Agatha! I kept shouting through the phone screen, my hands trembling as I adjusted the camera's view. Suddenly, Agatha sat up with a loud laugh. Her long hair was disheveled, her clothes were torn, and her face had deep, hollowed eyes from which a lot of blood was dripping. Agatha's hands were raised high, two objects that were difficult to define. They were round, slimy with liquid, constantly flowing down. Her laughter gradually lost control, becoming frantic and delighted. I threw my phone away and clutched my head, screaming loudly. After calming down a bit, I quickly picked up my phone and called the police. That very night, I booked the earliest flight to return and arrived home by 9 a.m. the next day. After consulting with the doctor, I learned that Agatha had body integrity identity disorder, a condition where she had a strong desire to remove a part of her body. I had been standing in front of the hospital room door for over an hour. Although I really wanted to go in, I didn't know how to face Agatha. Everything between us would probably end. By Body integrity identity disorder is a rare psychological condition where the person affected feels that a part of their body does not belong to them and has an intense desire to remove it. In the United States, this syndrome has attracted the attention of the medical community and society in recent years. To date, the exact cause of BIID has not been clearly identified. Some patients with this condition in the United States: Jewel Shuping, self-inflicted drainage fluid into her eyes. From a young age, Jewel had hated seeing everything and tried to imagine how happy she would be if she were blind. Chloe Jennings, white, lives in a wheelchair and uses a clamp on her leg, despite being perfectly healthy. This condition severely impacts the psychological and physical well-being of those affected, requiring further research to find an effective treatment method. I'm Lewis, 37, working in medical aesthetics. I've got 2 spots, one in Dallas and one in Houston, Texas. So this story isn't about me. It's about a friend who works in the same field, and yeah, I kinda had a hand in that whole mess. My friend Joey, straight up the most naturally gorgeous person I've ever met. Joey's 2 years younger than me. His parents wanted him to be a lawyer, but he bailed on that and jumped into construction on his own. He's doing pretty great, making bank off big and small construction gigs. No doubt Joey's good looks have totally helped him land those deals. Construction work's tough with all the sun, wind, and dust, but it doesn't mess with Joey's looks. If anything, it makes him even tougher and more good-looking. The cash he's making isn't enough to keep up with his wild nights at bars and clubs. With his all-over-the-place attitude, Joey up and quit his construction gig again. I'm over that exhausting job. I want good money, but with less hassle and a cleaner, comfier setup. Joey asked me to teach him about the beauty biz. I'll hook you up with some courses. Joey cut me off and goes, "No need to waste time. I'll just come to your clinic to learn." After a lot of convincing, I finally agreed to let Joey start with some basic stuff. Joey's pretty sharp, so it didn't take him long to catch on and pick things up. It took Joey like 3 days to get the hang of waxing and hair removal. With his looks, Joey helped me pull in a ton more customers. "Lewis, I'm opening my own cosmetic clinic next month." Joey dropped that bomb on me, and I was totally shocked. "But you..." "Watching you work," Joey shrugged. "It's easy. Cosmetic surgery is not as hard as I thought." Even though I tried to talk him out of it, Joey's confidence just kept growing. Less than a month later, Joey's cosmetic clinic was all set up and running. Joey straight up crushed it again in the new field. Joey's making crazy money selling the whole responsibility and reputation thing in the beauty industry. But slowly, Joey's customers started complaining about the service. Joey fixed it by shutting down the shop, moving to a new spot, and pulling in a whole new crowd. With that slick business move, Joey's beauty spots just kept opening and closing, running at full speed the whole time. He just straight up bought a big villa without even thinking about it. That was the only thing left, since Joey blew all his savings on his crazy lifestyle. On top of doing unlicensed cosmetic surgery, Joey also went all in, taking on cases that needed real medical know-how. And then things got way worse than just some allergies or complications. One afternoon, I got a call from Joey. As soon as I picked up, I was freaked out by a girl's scream, like she was in pain. Lewis, what do I do about this allergy thing?" Joey yelled into the phone. Before I could even respond, the girl's moans got louder. I heard medical stuff breaking, and Joey was screaming and cursing. "Joey, what the heck did you do? What's the client's situation right now?" I gave her anesthesia. She was twitching with her mouth wide open. Oh my God, stop it!" Then the call just cut off. I called a few more times, but Joey didn't pick up, and the same thing happened the next few days. A few days later, the news came out about a girl named Cassie going missing. The police looked into her recent stuff and found out she'd booked an appointment for black hairy tongue treatment at Joey's clinic. Feeling like something was really wrong, I called Joey right away, but he still didn't pick up. 6 days after they announced Cassie was missing, the cops found a suitcase in the basement of the villa with her body in it. The villa owner? Yup, it was Joey again. Joey sold the villa cheap because it was falling apart, all to cover his out-of-control spending. After selling the villa, Joey also hid the suitcase with Cassie's body in the basement. At the trial, he admitted guilt and said he'd been hammered on booze and drugs while treating Cassie, and that's what caused the accident. I really wish I hadn't asked for help from someone so reckless and messed up. This story is based on a real event, the tragic cosmetic accident of Maria Pilar Cruz that took place in 2003 in New York. Maria, dealing with black hairy tongue, made the mistake of choosing a cosmetic clinic instead of going to a hospital for proper treatment. Then, Maria's life came to an end at the hands of Dean Fajilo, a self-proclaimed cosmetic doctor who started out just doing basic hair removal. Dean's perfect looks and sharp mind were his weapons, helping him trick countless customers into trusting his so-called cosmetic expertise. Behind that flawless appearance was an empty soul, long corrupted by alcohol and illegal substances. I'm Sarah, a policewoman in New Mexico. Been doing this for over 6 years. So, like 5 years ago, I was driving west on I-40, and I saw a silver Honda CR-V just chilling on the side of the road. What was noticeable was this short woman standing by the car, looking totally confused. Since I'm police, I didn't even think twice. I pulled over to help her out. "Hello, can I help you?" "Oh, hi, officer. I'm good. My friend's on the way. Should be here in a few minutes." "For real? You sure you don't need any help?" "Oh, yeah, I'm good. Thanks a bunch." I dipped once I was sure everything was cool. About an hour later, I went back on the highway, and it was the same silver CR-V and the girl. She probably still hadn't gotten help, so I pulled up again. "You're still here?" "Oh, you? Yeah, my friend's still on the way." "What's up with your car?" "I was driving and boom, had to pull over right here." "You don't got a spare tire?" "Oh no, my friend's bringing it." I told the woman I'd help since it was getting dark. "I think I should grab a spare tire for you. What do you think?" "Awesome, thanks a ton. Come to my car. I'll see about getting a spare for you." Can I grab the bag from inside the car first?" She seemed iffy when I suggested going to the police car. "Nah, no need. Get over here quick before it gets dark and we waste more time." The woman still seemed iffy, looked at her car for a sec like she was thinking, then hesitated before following me. Right when I got to my car and was about to grab my phone, the radio buzzed with a message from dispatch that gave me the chills. "Attention all units. State Investigation Force requests assistance. Officer is with a female suspect. License plate check indicates the woman is a suspect in a New York murder case. Proceed with caution." My heart started racing. My ears were ringing, and my head was all spinny. It took me a few seconds to wrap my head around it, chill out and deal with it. Good thing I didn't let her grab the bag from the car, or things could have gone way worse for me. The woman was standing in front of me all calm, but her eyes were non-stop scanning everything around us. I grabbed my phone, called my partner, and tried to drag out the convo with her. "How long you been here?" Had to ask 3 times before she finally answered.
I think like 20 minutes.
Nah, you've been here for like an hour. Hello? Hello? Oh man, I'm with the owner of the busted car. Yup, that's the license plate I just reported. No. I hung up, no spare tire, and tried to tell my partner everything I could. Hold up, they're gonna call back any second. Being police meant I couldn't just slack off. Yeah, I heard. Yup, that's the spot. I-40 West. Got it. I double-checked with my partner, trying to sound as chill as I could. They're bringing a spare tire. How long you been driving? Like 10 hours, I don't know. Seriously? You tired? Can I go back to my car? I'm cold. As soon as she said that, she just turned and dipped, even though I kept calling after her. Wait, what's going on? Hey! I was pretty confused, just trying to make sense of everything as fast as I could. I got you. I'll grab the thing you need. Don't worry about it, No time to mess around. I just tackled the girl, slammed her to the ground, twisted her arms behind her, and slapped on the cuffs. What the hell? You're hurting me! Oh my god, no! She kept yelling. A guy ran over from a distance. He was super tall. For a second, I thought it might be the friend of the suspect talked about, and I wasn't sure I could take him on. You need any help, officer? Oh, yeah. Can you help me hold her hand? The guy jumped in to help. I let out a sigh of relief and said thanks when I found out he was just a random person passing by. My partner showed up just in time to take the female suspect to the station, and right after that, she got handed off to the NYPD for more questioning. This story is based on a true event, and the whole thing went down in 2021. The suspect's identity was identified as Hayan Deng, 31 years old, of Chinese origin, working at a nightclub in New York. The victim she killed was her lover, Justin Lee, originally from Fujian. He was married with 2 kids. Hayan Deng and Justin Lee had a major falling out when they couldn't agree on how much compensation he should give her after they broke up. In the end, she decided to take her lover's life with a revolver. That day, the female officer was incredibly lucky. I really admire her bravery and how professionally she handled the whole situation.
I'm Sean, 36, and I live alone in Texas. My wife and son left about a year ago. I haven't seen my little boy since then. He's 6 years old now. I work as a short-term security guard. Specifically, I'm hired to guard things like concerts, conferences, events, and exhibitions, which often need a lot of security guards to keep everything safe. Or when a company's regular security guard is on leave. When a company needs to quickly boost its workforce, they'll bring in temporary employees like me. This job is pretty good for me right now because of my health issues. A year ago, I had a car accident on my way home from work. After that awful accident, I'd get bad headaches whenever the weather changed. One day, the doorbell rang at 8 a.m. "Hello, I'm Brad." The man introduced himself in a cold tone and looked me up and down with a sharp gaze. "How can I help?" "I hear you work as a security guard. Can I come in and talk to you for a bit?" It turned out Brad was here for work, so I quickly invited him in. Brad sat across from me, still wearing the same expression and look in his eyes. "I need you to be a security guard at my house for one night only." "Are you organizing a party or something?" $500 in cash. I'll pay you right now." Brad didn't answer any of my questions about the security job. I could see his eyes slowly shifting from cold to red with anger. But I didn't want to agree without knowing all the details. I kept trying to ask Brad questions. $1,000. Brad slammed his hand on the table, leaned toward me, and shouted loudly. I was really worried and scared, but with the amount of money Brad was offering, I couldn't say no. I needed the money right at that time. Thinking the night would go by quickly and the job was something I was used to, I agreed with Brad. He immediately put $1,000 in cash on the table and then left. I had never taken a job with such a weird deal and attitude from the customer. That day, I couldn't shake this constant feeling of anxiety and insecurity. I wasn't exactly thrilled about making such a large sum of money. That night, right at 9 o'clock, I arrived at Brad's house. It was a decent house, but it felt a bit gloomy and cold to me. The lights in the house weren't all on. Only a dim light was visible through the window. I hesitated for a long time, but still didn't ring the doorbell. I had considered returning the money to Brad and turning down the job. "You're 20 minutes late, Sean." I was startled when Brad's cold voice cut through the silence. I'm sorry, but I don't think I can. Come in, I don't have much time." Before I could finish, Brad interrupted me and went straight into the house. The atmosphere inside the house felt even colder than it was outside. Everything was pretty modern, but it looked like it hadn't been used in a long time. So there wasn't a party. I must have been wrong about that. There was no one else in the house except for Brad. I noticed that the wall was covered with pictures of a woman. So many. It was like an art exhibition dedicated to her. "This is my wife, Megan." I turned around, startled to see Brad standing right behind me, his eyes full of affection as he looked at pictures of his wife. His eyes were completely different from when he came to my house. Brad must really love Megan. Wait, Megan looked familiar to me. I wasn't sure, because the light was too dim to see everything clearly. I moved closer to get a better look at Megan's picture. "Here's what you need to do." Brad startled me again. I turned around and walked over to where Brad was standing. His eyes turned fierce and intimidating again. "Protect my wife's sleep." I froze, my emotions in turmoil when I heard Brad's strange request. He went upstairs and told me to follow him. The closer we got to the upper floor, the darker everything became, making it harder for me to see. I walked slowly, and the darkness was accompanied by a faint but strong enough stench that made my nerves react. I reflexively covered my nose, and Brad immediately turned to look at me. The darkness cast shadows over his scary eyes, making them stand out even more. The black shadow made the whites of his eyes stand out, highlighting the dark red veins. Without looking at me for long, Brad continued down the hallway to the room at the end. The creaking sound when Brad opened the door gave me chills. At that moment, I thought about running away, but my thoughts and actions didn't line up. Following Brad into the room, the stench was so strong it was hard to breathe. In the middle of the room was a bed with someone lying under the blanket. The room was filled with pictures of Megan, Brad's wife. This time, I was sure she looked very familiar and was trying to remember where I'd seen her before. Brad walked over to the bed, gently pulled back the covers, and revealed a badly decomposed body with bones and flesh mixed together. I couldn't say a word. I backed away and pressed myself against the wall, my heart racing. "Megan, I found the person," You can rest easier now. Brad's words made me think he was definitely crazy. I rushed to the door, shaking the doorknob with one hand and dialing the police with the other. I shouted Brad's address to the police, telling them I was being held captive by a madman. A sharp pain shot through the top of my head. I felt warm streams running down my neck and face, and a salty, fishy taste filled my mouth. I passed out immediately and had no idea what happened next. When I woke up, I was tied up in a kneeling position on the floor. In front of me was the bed with the decomposing body that Brad had propped up. I was scared out of my mind, but couldn't move or scream. Next to the body was a photo of Megan and a bouquet of roses. At that close distance, I could see her face really clearly. "This is..." Brad gritted his teeth and his eyes widened. "The one you caused the accident and then ran away from. You left her in agony and she passed away." "That's right. This face. It was that woman. Do you have any idea how much pain I've been in for the past year? When I saw you, all I wanted to do was make you feel the pain my wife had to endure. I've lost everything." Brad screamed with hatred, pain, and helplessness. I was at a loss for words, with no way to explain that tough time. That night after the crash, I saw Megan, bleeding and quietly begging. But I was selfish. I decided to leave because I was thinking about the future and my family. In the end, my wife and son left me, and the loneliness and disease kept me stuck. Not a single day in the past year have I slept peacefully. I cried and begged Megan and Brad to forgive me. I deeply regretted what I had done. Brad couldn't calm down. He rushed at me and kept hitting my face and a wound on my head. The police broke down the door and rushed in. My vision was blurred with blood, and I saw Brad being restrained by 2 officers before I fainted again. When I woke up, I found myself in the hospital. I'd be treated for a while before facing the court. One evening, as I was drifting off to sleep, my phone suddenly rang. I jolted awake, my face scrunching up in discomfort at being disturbed. I answered the call, pressing the phone to my ear without bothering to check who was calling.
Please help me,
a man shouted. I instinctively pulled the phone away from my ear. When I looked at the number displayed on the screen, I rubbed my eyes 3 times. 911?
Please help me. He's about to catch up with me.
The person on the other end was panicking, his voice distorted, as if he were crying and desperate. "Who are you? Please calm down and tell me your address. I will help you call the police." I hurriedly replied to him, then paused. "But the number of the police hotline is calling for my help." Stunned for a few seconds, when I raised the phone to my ear again, I could only hear the long beeping sounds. What just happened? I think about the safety of that man. But how can I call the police when they're the ones calling for help? That was the first time I received such a strange call. Of course, things didn't just end there. The second time, while I was preparing lunch for a relaxing weekend, the phone rang loudly. When I saw the screen display 911, I hesitated to answer. After the scream, there was silence, and I could hear my heart pounding loudly. "May I ask, who was on the other end of the line?" In response, there was still silence, followed by a soft sigh, and then the call ended. I was annoyed because I was pretty sure I was being pranked by some idle person. If there's another time, I definitely won't let him get away with it. The third call came a week later, when I thought I had escaped those pranks. I picked up the third call with irritation, taking a deep breath to prepare to give that bastard a lesson when, "Please help me," a girl's voice. I estimated she was about 7 or 8 years old. Before I could answer, there was a chilling sound when flesh was impacted, the sound of metal, the squelching noise, and the drip of liquid falling. It was so clear that it penetrated my eardrum, followed by the long beeping sounds pulling me back to reality. I immediately removed the SIM card and buried the phone deep in the wardrobe. My mental state in the following days was in turmoil. I chose to stay home, haunted by all the noises, unable to control my mind from imagining the horrific scene behind that third call. I didn't share the story with anyone for fear of being accused of slander or suspected of being mentally insane. I kept avoiding it along with the fear and a million thoughts. On the 10th day, I decided to go outside to get some fresh air and relieve my stress. It was all just a cruel prank. That was my way of reassuring myself, and the most convincing reason I could find. The sunset evening in Jackson Hole, Wyoming, where I live, is truly wonderful. Wearing my running shoes, I jogged slowly while enjoying the scenery around me. It's a shame that these unexplained events have affected my life, and I've wasted this beautiful scenery for so long. I had run about 4 miles away from home. As I was walking gently to relax my body and head home, I encountered a man whose gaze was fixed intently on me. His pink outfit contrasted sharply with his angular, menacing face, creating a bizarre mismatch. I'm not someone who likes to pick fights, so I quickly left. I could hear someone's footsteps behind me, and I unconsciously walked faster, my heart pounding. I turned my head slightly to look back and saw a tall figure in pink clothing. It seemed to be the man from earlier. Is he just on the same path, or does he have other intentions? I stopped, stretched my body a bit, and ran. After all, I was in the appearance of a runner. I started to run. This would be a test. If he didn't follow, it meant I had been overthinking. But no, the man immediately shifted gears and sped up quickly. He chased after me, growling like a wild dog in a frenzy. I ran as fast as I could, with all my survival instincts and the desire to live. After running quite a distance, I thought about calling the police, but damn it, my phone was still buried in the closet. As soon as I saw a phone booth, I rushed in and locked the door, almost crying like a lost child. Unable to think of anything, instead of dialing the police, I pressed a very long number. "Please help me. He's about to catch up with me." I panicked, cried, and desperately screamed into the phone when I saw that crazy guy in the pink outfit holding a knife. "Who are you? Please, calmly tell me your address, and I will help you call the police." I shuddered. I had just called myself.
I'm a single woman, 30 years old, working at a small company in Houston. My life's pretty uneventful, just kinda quiet. I'm not really a loud or social person, and most evenings after work are just me having dinner alone and watching a favorite movie or reading a book. I left work at 8, like always. It was colder than I expected, the March wind sneaking through my thick coat, bringing that damp smell of dry leaves scattered on the sidewalk. I pulled up my collar and hurried to the bus stop, digging around my pocket for my keys. My fingers brushed against something soft and thin, a small piece of paper folded in half. I opened it up, and there was just one number inside, 30. I frowned. Who would even do this? but honestly, I was too tired to care. Standing next to a public trash can, I dropped the paper in and headed home. The next morning, as I got off the bus and walked toward the office, I absent-mindedly stuck my hand in my pocket, a familiar feeling. I pulled out another piece of paper, 29. My heart skipped a beat. This time I stopped, just staring at the number. It felt kind of weird, but I brushed it off. Must be someone messing with me. That's what I told myself, but I couldn't shake this strange feeling growing inside me. In the days that followed, numbers like 28, 27, 26 kept showing up in my pocket, one after another. I started feeling uneasy. How the hell were these pieces of paper showing up like this? I started checking my pockets every day, turning them inside out before leaving the house. But nothing changed. I changed the locks, installed a security camera, even bought a gun for protection and kept it under my pillow. But that didn't change a thing. I kept finding the notes, each one closer, more unsettling every day. I was getting more and more anxious, trying to figure it out, but coming up empty. Every time I went out, I kept looking around, eyeing every passerby like they might be the one messing with me. Was someone doing this to me on purpose? One weekend morning, I didn't go to work, and the note wasn't in my pocket this time. I found it in my mailbox. Number 3, someone knew where I lived. I looked around, panicked, feeling helpless, and like I couldn't breathe. When I got inside, my mind wouldn't stop racing with 1,000 questions. What the hell was going on? I had to call the police, but what could I even tell them? What proof did I have? I ran into the bathroom, gripping the door to steady myself, because it felt like my body was about to give out. My mind was a mess, and the only thing looping over and over in my head was numbers. I didn't want to see them anymore. Not again. I turned on the faucet, letting the cold water run over my face, hoping it would calm me down. My hands shook as the cold water hit them, but it didn't clear my head. The fear still clung to me like a ghost, hanging in the air, drowning out every other feeling. I stood up and looked in the mirror in front of me, and there it was, the number 2. My eyes widened, and this crushing feeling of despair hit me. No way out. No escape. I tried to breathe, but the air felt thick, like it was closing in on me. I couldn't take it anymore. I held my head, my hands tangled in my messy hair, like I just wanted to tear myself away from all of this. And I screamed, a desperate, helpless cry for help. Someone was out there, watching from a distance, and I was just a piece in their messed up game. I called Maggie out of breath, begging to crash at her place for a few days. I told her everything. She thought I was just burned out from work. Maggie promised she'd always have my back and would call the police if anything happened. But even with Maggie's reassuring smile, I couldn't shake the anxiety. The days I spent at Maggie's apartment felt like a much-needed break. Every morning when I woke up, those pieces of paper, those creepy numbers, were gone. Maggie was always there, talking with me, having coffee together, and in those moments, I slowly started to feel a little more at peace. After a few days, I knew I had to go home. I needed to grab some important documents, and I couldn't keep relying on Maggie forever. But part of me still felt uneasy, so I asked Maggie to come with me. When we got near my door, there was a piece of paper stuck to it. This time, it was the number 1 right in the middle of a target symbol. I froze, my heart pounding, fear flooding over me. All those awful memories came rushing back. Maggie, I whispered, my voice shaky, squeezing her hand without even realizing it. Maggie looked at the paper and smiled. Don't stress too much. Everything's fine. We'll just grab your documents and get out of here. I tried to grab her hand, but she just looked at me, sighed, and opened the door. The moment the door opened, It felt like time stopped. Then a loud noise. My whole body tensed up. Numbness and confusion swallowed me. Everything felt blurry, unreal. I saw Maggie collapse to the floor, bright red blood quickly soaking into the carpet beneath her. A bullet right in the middle of her forehead, her eyes still wide open. Frozen in shock, I couldn't move, couldn't say a word. The only sound in the room was my shaky, ragged breathing that wouldn't stop. I called the police, telling them everything, from the weird numbers on the pieces of paper to Maggie's death. They brought me in to give a statement at the station. When I walked into the interrogation room, the bright lights made it hard to see anyone's face. Everything felt hazy, unfamiliar. I sat down, clutching my head, my eyes red and swollen from crying. My words came out in broken pieces, and sometimes I even laughed this strange, unsettling laugh, like the panic had completely taken over. The police kept asking me about the weird stuff, the numbers, Maggie, but all I could do was repeat myself, crying and laughing, totally lost. It felt like I was stuck in a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. Finally, I stared straight at the detective taking notes and said, my voice sharp but oddly unfamiliar, I have found a substitute. A faint, unsettling smile crept across my face, even though I didn't understand why. The whole room went silent, everything suddenly still. Just me, and those damn pieces of paper that wouldn't leave me alone.
My twin sister and I have a terrifying secret. I'm Robert, and my twin sister is Laura. Our family of 4 lives in a mobile home. We move every day along the roads through towns, cities, and state. My parents always choose empty lots or wooded areas for the family to spend the night. My sibling and I didn't attend school like other children. Instead, we followed an online program. It may sound deprived and unfortunate, but my family was still very happy for 13 years. One evening, after our parents went to sleep, my sibling and I snuck into the forest to play. Because we spent 90% of our time in the van, we were very curious about everything around us. Laura clutched the hem of her shirt tightly, following closely behind as I held the flashlight to light our way. The sudden rustling sounds of leaves being disturbed startled us. We stood frozen for a moment until a growling sound signaled the approach of a large and terrifying creature. I grabbed Laura's hand tightly and ran with all my strength without looking back. Miraculously, my sister and I made it back into the house safely without our parents noticing. We absolutely kept that secret from our parents. The mobile life of the family continued as usual. One day, I told my parents during dinner that I wanted to settle down somewhere. I want to go to school, have more friends, and sleep on a big bed in my own room. My parents looked at me silent for a long time. Do you still remember what happened when the two of you were just 4 years old? Mom asked gently. We don't want that to happen again. We won't be able to live if we lose you two. When my twin sister and I were 4 years old, while the family stopped to play at a park, we almost got kidnapped by a man. Since that incident, our parents have been more vigilant about us, and rules were established for us. Laura didn't say anything, although I knew she also shared the same desire as I did. I remained silent, although I was not satisfied or comfortable. Several months passed with our mobile life until my sibling and I were about to celebrate our 15th birthday. That day, my parents parked a car in an empty lot and instructed my sibling and me to stay put in the car until they returned. Laura tidied up the car to decorate for the birthday, while I lounged on the bed with my gaming console. A moment later, Laura called me urgently. Robert, come here quickly. Laura was sitting next to an old box with some papers in her hands. The box was something my dad used to prop up the driver's seat every day, and I thought the papers were just some kind of advertisements. But Laura handed them to me with a very serious expression. That was our birth certificate, but our parents' names were Owen Taylor and Anna Taylor, while our current parents are Maria and Louis. There were also a few old newspapers. June 13, 2000. A case of 2 missing twin children under 6 months old received significant attention. November 20th, 2000. The mother of the 2 children, after months of desperately searching for her kids, went insane. The father did not give up. He was willing to pay any price and do whatever it took to find his children. April 4th, 2004. The father, after many years of searching, accidentally encountered the 2 children in a park. With the identifying features, he was certain they were his 2 children. However, the kidnappers attacked him and took them away. Once again, the man fell into despair as he lost his children for the second time. There is a hand-drawn sketch of the 2 kidnappers in the article, and it's shocking how much it resembles our current parents by about 70%. An article also included a letter that the father wrote to his 2 children. Dear Robert and Laura, my beloved children, I don't know where you are right now, but remember that your parents always love you. I will try to find you and bring you back, so please stay healthy. I looked at Laura. Her eyes were red and her body trembled from shock. I didn't think much, grabbing Laura's hand, and ran out of the car, running fast and far to a police station to ask for help. We were kept at the police station for our safety. Laura couldn't stop crying. I knew she was very scared. That very night, a man came to the police station. He looked at us for a long time before kneeling down and bursting into tears. He was our biological father. Our adoptive parents were wanted and captured 2 days later after going into hiding. It was difficult, with feelings of guilt and regret, as we had reported the people who had taken care of us for 15 years. But according to the police, we would soon have been sold by that couple as valuable goods. My brother and I were taken back to our hometown in Ohio, living in the spacious house we had long dreamed of. Although there are still distances and unfamiliarity, we will gradually adjust because we know that this place truly has the love of family. I'm Daria, 23 years old, currently residing in Phoenix. Devlin, my boyfriend for 6 months, was 2 years my senior. He's a very delicate and gentle soul who's a great listener. I'm feeling so lucky that we came across. A few weeks ago, Devlin had a 2-month business trip in Dallas. It would be the first time we're distancing ourselves. Every evening, around 9:30 p.m., Devlin would call me. He often asked about how my day went, complimented me on my beauty, and reassured me on him coming home soon. Sometimes I would also receive surprise gifts as well. This relationship brought me a lot of joy, knowing that I was respected and treasured. One night, after Devlin and I were having a joyful conversation, an account appeared in our chat. Devlin and I were wondering whether we should add that person in. Devlin said no, and so I went. That stranger account had no profile picture, nor anything in the camera. Devlin and I said hello, but answering us was an utmost silence. Devlin was really annoyed by this, and he had attempted multiple times at deleting the account, but to no avail. So we left the conversation, frustrated. After the third wheel encounter, we went to sleep, texting our goodbye. Yet I felt really odd about that strange account. The next evening, Devlin called me once again at 9:30 p.m. Seeing him brought me a lot of joy, and I turned on the call. As soon as we saw one another, that account bumped right in. Devlin was furious this time and aggressively interrogated the stranger account on what he wanted. Suddenly, that account sent a message in the chat bar. Michael Brown, 31, San Jose. At first I thought he's trying to introduce himself, so I said hi back. But Devlin was not in the same boat as me. He was visibly angry with the account. He demanded the account to leave us alone, or else he'd call the police. I was really baffled by Devlin's oddly fierce behavior. He normally was very polite and gentle. Devlin then told me to turn off the call immediately, which I followed suit without anything else. A few minutes later, Devlin called me on my phone, stuttering and trying to tell me to never believe anything the other said. I could hear panic in his voice, same as exhaustion. Must be a tough week for him, I thought. While I constantly reassured Devlin and told him to get some rest, he kept babbling about keeping faith in him, ending the call in a rather weird note. I kept thinking about Devlin's odd behaviors. The next day, Devlin was not online at all. He disappeared for an entire day. And in the evening, he told me he was having some urgent things to do and couldn't let me know beforehand. It's alright, I texted him back, then sunk down on my web surfing. Suddenly, that stranger account sent a message in the chat bar. Natalie Garcia, 21, model. What was going on? I mumbled, looking at the text. So I went online and searched for the Natalie Garcia on the internet. The information in her picture really puzzled me out. She was somewhat very similar to me, to the point of almost doppelganger. So Miss Natalie Garcia here was a newly risen model. Yet for the last couple of months, she was reported missing. After finishing my research on Natalie, I suddenly thought about the other account. So I came over to ask further. First about their intention at sending me Michael and Natalie's names. Yet the account had disappeared without any trace. Even stranger, due to me not deleting the conversation at all. Suddenly, Devlin called me on my phone, prompting me to pick up. Honey, can you look over the window for me? I did not reply, since I was still dumbfounded and clouded with disbelief over his sudden appearance. When I came over to pull away the curtain, Devlin was on my front porch, carrying a rose bundle and smiling at me. Everyone had a sweet spot, and to me, it was this sweet surprise. Devlin said he'd arranged this 2 days to go back to me and will return to Dallas later. For that 2 days, we left the bustling world behind and only cared about us. That strange account and its mysteries, I left it in the corner and let it be. When Devlin returned to Dallas after the short vacation, I helped him with the luggage. Suddenly, I saw a Californian ID. Curious, I lifted it up, showing the owner Michael Brown, 31 years old, residing in San Jose, California. The portrait showed a person that was seemingly Devlin, yet there were differences, as if it was him but wasn't him. Now with this new discovery, I remembered the information that account sent, and it was uncannily accurate. However, as soon as I questioned Devlin about the ID I found, his attitude changed completely. He hushedly grabbed the card, saying that it was his twin brother. But he didn't look at me in the eyes, and I had never heard him mentioning about any of his brothers. I didn't press it further, and when he left, my mood wasn't in a good way. Upon returning home, I wanted to contact to that stranger account to ask everything out, and like already knew my intention, there was messages sent from that account to me. Get away from that killer, ASAP. The text put chills on the back of my neck. I had to read it again to calm enough to reply. Who are you? What do you know of my boyfriend? Everything. Can I see you in person for a conversation? Can't. I'm dead for 2 months now. My body started shaking uncontrollably. The text notification rang out one more time, and this time, I told myself I need to be calm and take care of things. A suburb abandoned house in Carefree. The last message made me shudder, and now I couldn't take it anymore. I turned off my phone and deleted all the messages, trying to forget this creepy thing. However, the curiosity slowly overtook me. I kept thinking about that abandoned house that account said. Also, Devlin's messages to me would make me grow more and more suspicious about him. What kind of secret did my boyfriend hold, I wondered. So I decided to get to the bottom of this. It's true that in Carefree Suburb had an abandoned house. So I went there with a close friend of mine. As soon as we stepped in, a sense of dread and a nasty stench assaulted our noses, nauseating us. Too afraid to venture further, we decided to call the police. In my care, I bursted out crying. I couldn't control myself anymore. When the police arrived and scoured out the building, they found a decomposing body having the identification of Miss Natalie. The police also disclosed to me about a male suspect, Michael Brown, 31 years old. He's the #1 suspect to Natalie's disappearance and now death, being the victim's boyfriend at the time. Michael had likely undergone multiple steps to escape from the law for the couple of months, including paperwork forgery and plastic surgeries. My world was crumbled in front of me. I was lied to and taken advantage of for the last months. If it wasn't exposed soon, I might even join Natalie in the victim list. I brought everything I knew about Devlin, aka Michael, to the police, but it seemed that Weasel had smelled something and he deep dived again. I was instructed to relocate to avoid that killer. Yet the most unbelievable thing was that I talked to a ghost. That morning when I woke up, I received a message. "Honey, can you look over the window for me?"
I'm Nicholas, 19, living in a chill suburb of a small town in Michigan. I've always seen this place as pretty quiet, maybe even kind of boring. But last week, something went down that totally changed everything. It was the night I figured out that sometimes the scariest stuff isn't shadows or ghost stories, it's people, the ones lurking behind a screen. The story starts on a Wednesday night while I was swiping through Tinder. I wasn't really thinking about it, just scrolling like it was any other way to kill time. But then, this familiar face popped up, Maria. She went to high school with me, one of the most popular girls in our class. With her long, shiny hair, big eyes, and bright smile, she always caught everyone's attention. I could barely believe it when I got the notification. She swiped right on me. I texted her right away to show my excitement, trying to keep it cool. Maria and I were texting back and forth for a few days. She seemed upbeat, friendly, but mysterious too. When Maria texted me saying she wanted to come over next Friday night, I felt like everything was perfect, and I just wanted to jump around with excitement. My parents were off on a weekend trip to Wisconsin, and my little sister Mia was usually in her room watching movies. I didn't even think twice about saying yes since I knew Maria, and I would have some time alone. Friday night, I got everything set up. The living room was clean, snacks were set out on the table, and I even turned on the patio lights to make it feel cozy. But when it hit 8, then 9, Maria still hadn't shown up. I started to get worried, but I told myself maybe she was stuck in traffic, something came up, or she just changed her mind. By 10 p.m., I sent a couple more texts, but she didn't reply. By this point, I was starting to feel uneasy. I grabbed my phone and gave her a call. When she picked up, I heard Maria's familiar voice, but it didn't feel as comforting as I thought it would. Her voice was cold and distant, and what she said hit me like a punch to the gut. Maria wasn't even on Tinder. Someone must have been pretending to be her. I felt like my blood just turned to ice. If it wasn't Maria, then who the heck had been texting me? Even worse, how did that person know where I live? I quickly went around checking all the windows and doors to make sure they were locked. My mind was racing with a million thoughts. Was this just some stupid prank, or was it something way more serious? My sister was up in her room. I didn't want to freak her out, so I just casually told her to lock her door. Mia gave me a curious look, but I just shook my head and didn't say anything else. I sat back down on the couch in the living room, trying to chill out. Outside, the wind was whistling through the bare branches, making this soft, whispery sound. The clock in the living room kept ticking, and every second felt like it was dragging on forever. Out of nowhere, I heard a weird noise coming from upstairs. I jumped up, my heart racing like crazy. Soft footsteps, really light but definitely clear. I froze, straining to hear, and then Mia's piercing scream shattered the silence. I bolted up the stairs, but it felt like my legs had turned to stone heavy and hard to move. Mia's door was wide open, and she was standing there, huddled up, pointing at the window. I looked where she was pointing and saw a tall figure standing in the yard under the pale yellow light. He was wearing a black hoodie, just standing there, completely still, like he was watching us. Before I could even move, he turned and vanished into the darkness. Mia was trembling. I grabbed her, pulled her into my room, locked the door, and quickly called 911. While waiting for the police, I clutched a kitchen knife I'd grabbed from downstairs, my hands slick with sweat. The wind outside now sounded like someone scratching at the glass, and every little noise in the house made me jump out of my skin. But the scariest thing didn't happen at Mia's window. It happened at my parents' bedroom window. A sharp noise echoed, like glass being slid open. I froze, barely breathing, feeling like a rush of cold air had just swept in from somewhere. I didn't dare open the door. I just kept praying the police would get there in time. About 10 minutes later, the flashing red and blue lights of a police car lit up the window, and I finally felt a wave of relief, like I'd just been saved. The cops searched the entire house, inside and out. They found my parents' bedroom window had been forced open, with clear footprints in the snow outside, leading into the woods. Even though they searched the area around the house, they didn't find anyone. One of the officers asked if I had any idea who it could be, or if my family knew anyone suspicious. I had no idea how to answer. How could I even explain that this person had probably used a fake identity to trick me into thinking they were someone else on a dating app? After that night, I couldn't sleep right ever again. Every time I looked out the window, I couldn't shake the feeling that person's silhouette was out there, hiding in the dark. I couldn't help but wonder, why me? Was it just random, or was there something more to it? Whatever the reason is, I know things will never go back to normal. That person is still out there, waiting, and that thought haunts me every single night. Be careful what you come across online. Not everything's true, and not everyone's got good intentions. Sometimes the scariest things aren't ghosts or horror stories, but people you know, with a darkness behind them you never saw coming. I never thought my life would become a real nightmare. My name is Emma Carter, 25 years old, and I work as a server at a high-end restaurant on the outskirts of Chicago. I've always been cautious, especially with men who may have bad intentions. In the past, I've been harassed a few times, but never to the point where I feared for my life. I have big ambitions in the hospitality industry, and I've built a professional LinkedIn profile to seek better opportunities. Everything started very normally. One day, I received a message on LinkedIn from Richard Holloway, the shift manager at the restaurant where I worked. He was 45 years old, married with 2 children, always polite and courteous. The first message was simply career advice, tips on how to develop professionally in the industry. I didn't think much of it and replied politely. But then, the messages started becoming more personal. "You're really a special girl. I think we could be closer. Would you like a little help in your career?" When I read those words for the first time, I felt uncomfortable. The friendliness turned into something over the top. I replied briefly, trying to keep a clear distance. But Richard didn't stop. The messages from him came more frequently, often late at night. "I have a private apartment to relax after work. Would you like to come? My wife doesn't understand me the way you do." A feeling of disgust surged within me. I didn't reply. The encounters at the restaurant became tense every time Richard stared at me with eyes full of hidden meaning. I tried to avoid him, but I couldn't leave this job. Then one day, when I opened the locker in the employee changing room, I froze. A bouquet of bright red roses was neatly placed inside, with no name. Only a small card with scribbled handwriting. For you. Unable to bear it anymore, I decided to block Richard on LinkedIn. But the next morning, I received a friend request from a new account. When I opened it, a message chilled me to the bone. Do you think you can escape from me so easily? I know you still read my messages. I'm always watching you. Fear began to consume my mind. The feeling of being watched grew stronger and stronger. When leaving the restaurant after my shift, I always felt like someone was standing a few steps behind me. One night, I heard footsteps behind me. I walked faster, and the footsteps quickened as well. I ran. When I reached my apartment, I quickly locked the door, my heart pounding, my mind spinning with panic. I couldn't sleep for several nights. Every time I closed my eyes, I had the feeling that someone was standing right next to my bed. I would wake up suddenly in the middle of the night, my heart racing, cold sweat dripping down my face, only to realize that the room was completely empty. But I couldn't convince myself that I was safe. The next morning, I arrived at the restaurant in a state of extreme stress. But what awaited me was even worse. On my desk, right in front of me, was a photo of me on my way home with the words, "I was here." I panicked. I called the police, but they couldn't do anything without concrete evidence. I only received advice to be more careful. Their helplessness only made me more desperate. One time, I confided in Lucas, a close coworker, about being followed. Lucas knew a bit about IT, so I asked him to investigate the LinkedIn account that had been bothering me. Tracing the IP address, Lucas discovered it didn't come from Richard. A cold shiver ran down my spine. If it wasn't Richard, then who was it? I was hoping for some comfort, but Lucas just chuckled and said, "Well, if I were you, I'd make him disappear." I laughed, thinking it was just a joke. That night, I received another video from the fake LinkedIn account. I hesitated for a few seconds, a sense of unease creeping over me. I knew I shouldn't open it, but curiosity mixed with fear made me unable to resist. I opened it, and my heart seemed to stop. In the video, Richard was tied to a wooden chair, his face bruised. A voice echoed from the darkness. "He was following you, but now he's mine." I jumped, dropping the phone onto the bed, struggling to breathe, but the air around me felt suffocating. A chilling sensation crawled up my spine, as though someone was standing right behind me, whispering in my ear. My hands trembled as I grabbed my phone to call the police, but every search effort came up empty. The next day, the restaurant received news. Richard had mysteriously disappeared. Then, I received another message. "He made you uncomfortable, didn't he? I've helped you." I mustered the courage to reply, "Who are you? What do you want?" There was no specific answer, just another video. In the video, I saw myself leaving the restroom at the restaurant. A hidden camera recorded a man hiding behind a locker right after me. The final message almost made me drop the phone. "He's not the only one following you." The police traced the IP address and found an abandoned house. When they broke in, a foul odor hit them as soon as they entered. Deeper inside, they found a dark room with a flickering overhead light, casting a cold glow on a body tied to a chair in the middle of the room. Inside the secret room, the police found dozens of photos of me taped to the walls, taken from different angles. My daily schedule was carefully recorded, hour by hour. A computer contained hundreds of fake LinkedIn accounts. The police recovered data and found fake conversations, including threatening messages to me. Some older photos of other women were also found. The police began to question, was I the only victim he had been obsessed with? Fingerprints found at the scene were matched, and the result left me speechless. All of them belonged to Lucas. When confessing his motive, Lucas said that he had been in love with me, but I only saw him as a friend. When he saw Richard flirting with me, he planned everything, created fake accounts, sent threatening messages, making me believe that Richard was the only dangerous one. But in reality, he was the true monster. As he was led away in handcuffs, Lucas looked at me with a crazed smile. "I've gotten rid of him, Emma. Now no one will hurt you." My whole body trembled uncontrollably. I knew I could never escape the darkness he had spread.
My roommate intends to kill me. I am Baron, living in a small house with 2 bedrooms. I posted an ad looking for someone to share the rent with. Even though I don't want to live with someone else, especially not a stranger. After a week of posting ads for a roommate on various websites, I met Dante, who was the same age as me. Dante moved in with nothing but a single backpack. He was tall, very thin, with an expressionless face and eyes that always carried a constant look of exhaustion. After taking a tour around the house, we discussed some essential details about living together. Everything I brought up, Dante agreed to without a second thought. He had only one issue he wanted to discuss with me up front.
I often sleepwalk. I wonder if that will bother you.
I used to sleepwalk myself and had to undergo treatment for a while. Moreover, we have separate bedrooms, so I comfortably replied, "That's not a big issue for me." Having an additional person living with me wasn't as inconvenient as I had imagined. We didn't have the same schedules, so we didn't run into each other very often. The house also felt less empty. One night, I jolted awake when I heard Dante screaming loudly. I hurried to his room to check on the situation. "Are you okay?" I called out loudly while knocking on the door, trying to drown out Dante's screams. But immediately, he stopped screaming, and everything fell silent again. I tried turning the doorknob. He hadn't locked the door. Looking into the room, he was still asleep, as if nothing had happened. He must have been sleepwalking, I thought, and went back to bed. A few months later, everything went back to normal. I noticed that he didn't have any family or friends. In the several months he's been living here, I haven't seen anyone visit him. He also didn't have any phone calls with anyone. That's what I observed. He also didn't go out for leisure. He only went to the supermarket to buy some essentials and then returned home. One night, Dante screamed loudly again. This time, I ran over, opened his door without calling out first, but as soon as I opened the door, everything felt eerily silent, and he was still sound asleep. In the following days, everything went back to normal. One night, I jolted awake in the middle of the night. In the corner of the room, a tall, thin figure stood staring at me with lifeless eyes. I sat up, screamed loudly, and quickly turned on the light. "Dante!" I exclaimed in an irritated tone. "What are you doing in my room?" He didn't answer, standing still like a statue. I walked over and gave him a firm pat on the shoulder. Dante woke up, and after realizing what was happening, he repeatedly apologized and went back to his room. I couldn't go back to sleep. The image of Dante in the darkness kept playing tricks on my mind. Wait a minute, I clearly locked my door. Realizing this anomaly, I raised a big question about him and started to be more cautious. In the following nights, I couldn't sleep well. I had trouble falling asleep, kept waking up suddenly, and felt as though I was being watched. One night, I finally fell asleep around 2 a.m. Not long after, I jolted awake when I heard a noise that sounded like a door closing. I sat up, turned on the light, and looked around the room, but didn't see anything unusual. I walked over to the door, placing my hand on it with suspicion, and my heart was pounding. I turned the doorknob and was shocked to find that the door wasn't locked. But I swear I checked the lock at least 3 times before going to bed. Looking at Dante's room across the hall, a sense of tension and exhaustion overwhelmed me. I felt regretful for having found a roommate. I needed to have a clear conversation with him to find a solution. The next day, I left the house feeling extremely exhausted. The mountain of work that needed to be done left me drained. Returning home at 6 p.m., I collapsed into bed and fell asleep immediately. The screams rang out again, but it was very close, very loud, with a tone of pain and anger. I thought if I kept being pushed into such a state of panic and fear, my heart would eventually explode. I fumbled around, unable to find the light switch. Panicking and extremely scared, I also screamed loudly, joining in with the screams. Finally, the light was turned on. It was Dante, standing right behind my bed, hands holding the knife. His face was fierce with his eyes rolling wild, his mouth agape. All came down upon a scream. I stood on the bed, huddled into the corner of the room, my heart racing as if it might stop. He suddenly collapsed, kneeling on the floor with his head bowed, still holding tightly onto a knife. Minutes passed, and I didn't see any further reaction from him. I grabbed my phone, hurriedly fled the room, went to the garage and drove away. After driving a good distance away from the house, I checked the clock and saw it was after 3 a.m. I decided to sleep in the car and parked in the local church's parking lot. At 8 a.m., I drove back home. I guessed that Dante would be awake and that I would need to talk to him. But Dante was gone. He had moved out during the night. I called him, but couldn't get in touch. 2 months later, my lease ended. While cleaning up the house, I discovered a box in Dante's room. Inside there were many photographs of me sleeping, each one clearly dated. A key. I used it and opened my bedroom door. Sleepwalking might be causing Dante to behave in this disturbing way. Because he woke up in time that night, Dante stopped before he could harm me. Feeling guilty and embarrassed, he left. It's also possible that sleepwalking is just an excuse for him to carry out some evil intentions. Afraid that I would call the police, Dante quickly escaped and left behind this box. Regardless of the situation, I thank God that I am still safe. I have moved to another state, but what happened with Dante still haunts me every night. The secret behind Dante's actions remains a frightening mystery that I do not want to explore further.
4 years back in the fall, my girlfriend Louisa and I went on a road trip across the state to celebrate hitting 2 years together. We started out in Amarillo, headed southeast through Fort Worth, and ended up in Houston. The last part of the trip was all about chilling and having fun at the Kima Boardwalk, where I was planning to pop the question to Louisa. I was pumped for this trip. After a week of listing stuff, getting everything ready, and sorting out work, we hit the road. The first part of the trip was always a blast, and we were full of energy. We talked, snacked, checked out the streets, and got hyped about the trip. After a few hours, we got into a little argument, and I could tell Louisa was pretty upset. Same here, and I bet other couples do too. But it was all good. We got over that first bump pretty quick. We grabbed some amazing Texas barbecue and kept going when it was almost dark. We headed over to Fort Worth real quick. It's a city that mixes old school and modern vibes. After driving for a bit, I was totally caught off guard when Louisa shouted, "Hey, look!" On the side of the road, this old guy was standing there, waving at us. I didn't slow down or answer Louisa. I just drove right past the guy. "What's up with you, William?" Louisa was pissed at me.
Louisa, he's a total stranger, I pointed out. He's pitiful and needs help. Louisa's voice kept getting louder at me. How do you know he's pitiful? There's been so many scams like this lately. You can't just let random people in the car. Louisa went quiet after seeing I wasn't budging, staring out the window. The silence went on for almost 2 hours. Louisa shouted again, "William!" I looked where Louisa was pointing, and there was a man standing on the side of the road. "Stop the car and help him," Louisa pushed. "Isn't that the man we saw like 2 hours ago?" I was doubtful, and Louisa was getting pissed. Whether it's him or anyone else, we gotta help him. And I still decided to just drive past the guy. Of course, with how Louisa is, she got mad at me. With my girlfriend yelling at me, I just stayed quiet. Arguing right then wasn't gonna help at all. Maybe I made the right call, even though Louisa was still pissed. At least she shut up after a few words. We drove through a busy street and stumbled on this random music festival with a bunch of young people our age. I stopped the car, yanked Louisa out, and jumped into the fun to shake off the awkward vibe. In the noisy crowd, with the music blasting and lights flashing, I spotted the man from earlier, the one we'd seen twice on the highway. But for just a second, the lights went out and then back on, and he was gone. I pulled Louisa away, surprising her, and said I wasn't feeling great and was a bit hungry, just to get us out of there. We stopped at a Buc-ee's. It was like almost midnight. "I'll grab you whatever you want, cool?" Louisa gave a little smile and went inside while I stayed out to pump gas and would head in later. I tried to play it cool in front of Louisa, but in my head, I was feeling all kinds of restless and worried. A ton of questions and thoughts about that weird guy kept popping up in my head. After pumping gas, I went back into the store, looking for Louisa in the fast food section. "Louisa!" I yelled, getting everyone's attention, and marched over to her with a death glare. My girlfriend was talking to that guy. It had to be him in those torn-up clothes. But when I got closer, he was totally gone. "Did you just talk to him? What'd he say? You good?" I asked, freaking out. "Come on, William, it's just a homeless man asking for some food." "Please, William, your overprotectiveness is just turning into selfishness and being annoying." Louisa was getting pissed again. I just wanted to look out for her, but then I'm called selfish and annoying. My whole mood was off, and I snapped back. And then, the tension between us just blew up right there in the Buc-ee's. "Fine, do whatever you want with that annoying attitude." "I don't need you either, you jerk." She stormed off, and I wasn't about to chase her. It was the dumbest, worst decision of my life. After leaving the store, I looked around, but couldn't spot Louisa. I could hear muffled screams and a car engine in the distance. It was Louisa, getting yanked into the car. "Hey!" I screamed, tried to chase after them, but it was too late. The car was already gone, swallowed by the dark road. I was all fear, panic, and regret in that moment. I called police right away, and the whole investigation was a total nightmare. The Buc-ee's security cam caught the kidnapping that night, but since it was far away, you couldn't really see the kidnapper. I told the police about the weird guy. A week later, they finally caught the kidnapper, hiding out in some old house in the outskirts of the city. That freak, Dominic Novak. He admitted that he overheard me and Louisa talking at the barbecue joint, and that's when he started stalking us. He said he wanted to ruin our happiness and had been planning to snatch Louisa from the start. I couldn't keep it together and just ran straight to punch that crazy guy right at the police station. During the questioning, the guy just sat there all calm, like he didn't feel bad at all. He went on and on, talking about how he followed us and grabbed Louisa. But when police asked him where Louisa was, he just grinned and said, "You'll never find her." Dominic wouldn't say a word, He just kept Luisa's location to himself. The next few days were a total nightmare for me. Not only was I dealing with Luisa disappearing, but I also couldn't shake off the guilt and torment. I spent all my time in cash looking for Luisa, checking out the old streets, asking everyone, but no luck. Even though they never found Luisa, they wrapped up the case, saying she was killed and Dominic got life in prison. It's been 4 years, and I've kind of come to terms with losing Luisa. The engagement ring I always carried with me still reminds me I never got to get down on one knee and put it on her finger.
This time, it was coming from the woods. I grabbed the flashlight and made a run for the back door before Mom could stop me. No way I was going to leave Dad out there alone. "Devlin! Come back!" Mom shouted, but I was already outside, getting soaked by the rain. I aimed the flashlight at the woods and started yelling for Dad. Then I heard footsteps, but they weren't coming from where Dad's voice had been. The footsteps were coming from a different direction, deeper in the woods. I swung the flashlight that way, and my heart nearly stopped when I saw someone walking toward me. "Devlin? What are you doing here?" I almost dropped to my knees in relief. It was Dad. But wait, how could that be? I just heard him calling from the opposite direction. "I heard you calling from the woods," I said, my voice all shaky. Dad's face tightened. "I didn't call you. I was just checking around the house." A cold chill crept down my spine. If it wasn't Dad, then who the hell was calling me? "Go inside." I spotted someone running into the woods. We ran back toward the house, but the door was locked. "Mary, open the door," Dad yelled. No response. "Mary!" Dad called out louder, and a whole new kind of fear hit me. Then we heard a noise from the front of the house. Someone was messing with the front door. Dad held a finger up to his lips to tell me to stay quiet, and we slowly moved forward. Through the window, we saw Mom looking through the peephole, her face pale as a ghost. She turned, whispered something to Amy, and they both rushed upstairs. "Mary!" Dad knocked on the window, but Mom didn't hear him. The doorknob rattled again, this time harder, more aggressive. Dad grabbed my arm and pulled me toward the back door. "Devlin, I'm gonna bang on this door. When I get in, you run straight upstairs to Mom and Amy." I just nodded, too freaked out to say anything. Dad slammed on the door with everything he had. After the third bang, it flew open. We rushed inside, and I bolted straight upstairs. I found Mom and Amy in Mom and Dad's bedroom, both of them shaking. I saw it through the peephole. That's not a normal person, Devlin. That face. I couldn't deal with it. And I got it. I'd seen that face too, out there in the woods. That wasn't a human face. Then we heard Dad's voice downstairs, followed by the sound of glass shattering. Footsteps on the stairs. Heavy. Slow. Mom shoved us into the bathroom and locked the door. "Mary? Devlin? Amy?" Dad's voice echoed from right outside. We didn't make a sound. Barely breathed. "Mary, open the door. It's me." Dad's voice sounded totally normal. Mom pressed her hand over mine and Amy's mouths, telling us to stay quiet. "Mary, open the door." Dad's voice was angry now, and the doorknob started rattling hard. Then we heard another voice from downstairs. "Mary, Devlin, Amy, where are you?" It was Dad's real voice. Footsteps pounded up the stairs, followed by banging on the door, someone yelling. We just clung to each other, frozen, not even twitching. After a while, it all went quiet. Just dead silence. Then came Dad's voice again, soft and worried. "Mary, are you in there?" "John? Is that really you?" "It's me. Everything's safe." Mom slowly cracked the door open. Dad was standing there, blood running down from a cut on his forehead. "What happened?" "I don't know for sure," Dad said, catching his breath. "But it isn't the thief I thought it was." Dad led us downstairs. In the beam of the flashlight, I spotted something weird lying still on the floor. "What is it?" I asked, my throat tight. Dad pointed the light at it. It looked sort of human, but definitely wasn't. Its skin was super pale, its limbs were way too long, and its face looked all twisted, like it was trying to change into someone else, but couldn't quite get there. It tried to copy my dad's voice, and if Mom hadn't taken a second to really look through the peephole instead of just opening the door, who knows what kind of awful thing could have happened. The next morning, the storm was gone, and so was the monster. All that was left, where it had been, was a shallow puddle of water. No one believed what we said. The cops just chalked it up to fear, said maybe we were seeing things, or the real thief must have slipped away during the night. 12 years have passed, and still, on stormy nights, I wake up sweating from nightmares about that face and that fake version of my dad's voice. I've never told anyone outside my family about what happened. Who would even believe me? But last night, my 12-year-old daughter said she saw a weird figure in the backyard, a figure with arms that were way too long, and the forecast says there's a big storm coming tonight. I'm Henry, a delivery driver for UPS. It was a normal workday, but then everything changed in the blink of an eye. The UPS watch on my wrist read 6:30 p.m. as I drove through a deserted area outside Harrisonville. Only 1 hour left until the end of my shift. I was daydreaming about the warm dinner waiting for me when I noticed a black car parked on the side of the road ahead. Someone was waving at me. I slowed down, thinking they needed help. A man wearing a baseball cap and sunglasses approached me. Something wasn't right. His hand revealed a large knife. "Get out of the car," he ordered, his voice ice cold. My throat tightened, as if someone was squeezing it. I slowly opened the door and stepped out, my hands raised and trembling. "Wallet, phone, everything," he yelled. Cold sweat ran down my back as I pulled the items from my pants pocket. He snatched them, checked them quickly, and stuffed them into his pocket. Then he pushed me away and jumped into my UPS truck. I stood helplessly watching the truck full of packages speed away. I looked around. The road was deserted, only dry, yellowing cornfields under the fiery red sunset. I heard an engine. A pickup truck was approaching. I stood in the middle of the road, waving frantically. The truck slowed down. "What's wrong, buddy?" A middle-aged man with a thick beard and deep-set eyes asked through the lowered window. "I just got my UPS truck stolen. I need to get to the nearest police station," I said, my voice still shaking. The man looked at me intently, then nodded. "Get in. I'll take you there." I opened the door and climbed in, the smell of cigarettes and beer hitting my nose. "Thank you so much, sir." "I'm Ray," he introduced himself. "Henry," I replied, still reeling from the robbery. Ray nodded and drove off. After a few minutes, I realized we weren't going towards town, but away from any residential areas. My heart started to pound. "Sir, the police station is in the opposite direction," I said, trying to keep my voice calm. Ray didn't answer. He just stared straight ahead, his hands gripping the steering wheel tightly. "I can get out here. I'll walk," I suggested, a feeling of anxiety rising. Ray finally turned to look at me, a cold smile spreading across his lips. Before I could react, he pulled a handgun from under his seat. "Don't move," Ray ordered, pointing the gun at me. My throat went dry. For the second time that day, I was being held against my will. But this time was worse. Ray swerved onto a dirt road, leading into a dense forest. After about 10 minutes, we arrived at an old wooden cabin deep in the woods. Ray motioned for me to get out and shoved me into the cabin, the gun barrel digging into my back. The cabin was dilapidated with old furniture and trash scattered everywhere. Ray pushed me down onto a rickety wooden chair. "You don't have anything to steal," Ray said, his voice full of disappointment. "I just got robbed," I repeated. Ray sneered. "Let me think of another way to extract value from you." He rummaged through a cupboard and pulled out a roll of rope. Images of death suddenly became clear. I knew this was the time to act. As Ray approached me with the rope, I stood up abruptly and forcefully kicked the chair towards him. Ray stumbled backward. I lunged for the door, but Ray was faster than I thought. He grabbed my collar, pulling me down to the floor. Pain shot through me as my back hit the hard wooden floor. Ray kicked me hard in the ribs. I curled up, trying to protect my head and vital organs. After a series of blows, Ray stopped. I lay there, curled in a ball, gasping for breath. Every part of my body ached. "I'll figure out what to do with you next," Ray said, and left for another room. Despite the pain, I knew I couldn't die here. Images of my family flashed before my eyes, giving me strength. I slowly got to my feet, trying not to make any noise. On a nearby table, I saw an empty beer bottle. I reached for it and gripped it tightly in my hand. There were footsteps. Ray was coming back. I quickly lay down, pretending to still be unconscious, the beer bottle hidden behind my back. "Get up," Ray ordered, still holding the gun. "We're going for a ride." I didn't move. Ray approached, nudging me lightly with his foot. As he bent down to pull me up, I suddenly spun around, swinging the beer bottle hard into his head. The bottle shattered. Ray staggered back, blood starting to flow from the wound. I lunged at Ray, pushing him to the ground. The gun fell from Ray's hand, sliding across the floor. We wrestled, both trying to grab the gun. I swung my fist into Ray's face, feeling his nose break under my hand. Ray howled in pain. I snatched the gun and pointed it directly at him. "Don't move." "Calm down, buddy." Ray raised his hands, blood still flowing from his nose and head. "Put the gun down." But I saw calculation in his eyes. "Where are the car keys?" "In my pants pocket, take them." I moved closer, still keeping the gun pointed at Ray, and searched his pockets. I pulled out the keys, stepping back immediately. I turned and bolted for the door, every step sending jolts of pain through my body. "You're not getting out of here that easily," Ray hissed behind me. Just as I reached the doorknob, I heard a sound. Turning back, I saw Ray pull a knife from his belt and lunge towards me. Without thinking, I raised the gun. My finger tightened on the trigger, but I hesitated. I had never killed anyone. The gunshot echoed. Ray froze, his eyes wide with shock. He staggered, the knife falling to the floor. I gasped for breath, still holding the gun firmly. Ray took a step back, clutching his chest. He opened his mouth as if to say something, but only a choked breath escaped. Then he fell to the floor and lay still. I bolted out of the cabin, running towards the pickup truck. I drove frantically down the dark dirt road, not daring to look back. After about 20 minutes, streetlights appeared ahead. A sign read, "Harrisonville Center, 3 miles." I picked up the phone in the truck and dialed 911. "I need the police immediately. I just killed someone in self-defense." When the police arrived at the cabin, they found Ray's body and discovered a hidden trapdoor under the floor. Inside, 3 men were tied up, emaciated, but still alive. All delivery drivers who had gone missing from neighboring towns. "You didn't just save your own life, you saved 3 others, the detective told me at the hospital, where my wounds were being bandaged. Ray Calloway, the serial killer we've been hunting for 2 years. 2 days later, while recovering in the hospital, I received news that my truck and the robber from that night had been found. The packages inside weren't intact, which didn't surprise me, but luckily, the truck was okay when I got it back. A week later, I was released from the hospital, greeted as a hero at the UPS depot. The company covered all my medical expenses and gave me a long paid leave to recover. I still flinch every time I see a pickup truck on the road, but I learned a valuable lesson. The only way to survive is to trust your own instincts above anything anyone else says or shows. That's why I'm still alive to tell this story. The clock on the dashboard read 2:17 a.m. It had been over 12 hours since I left Colorado, and still about 3 hours left before getting home to California. The week-long sales trip had left me exhausted, but I pushed myself to drive home instead of staying another night in a hotel. Sharon, my wife, and the kids were waiting. It had been 3 months since the company moved me to the traveling sales division. My time with my wife and kids was almost zero. My eyes drooped with fatigue. The radio played worn-out country songs I had heard hundreds of times on trips like this. I adjusted the window, letting the freezing autumn night air awaken my numb senses. In the car's headlights, the road stretched endlessly ahead, as if I were driving into a boundless tunnel. It was right then that I saw him. At first, it was just a faint, dark shape on the roadside, easily missed if I hadn't happened to glance to the right. A man, standing with his thumbs stuck out. Something about the man's posture, maybe the exhaustion evident in his slumped figure, made me hit the brakes. My old sedan slowly came to a stop, and I rolled down the passenger side window. "Where are you headed?" I asked, trying to make out his face in the dark. "Eastbound. Anywhere along the way is fine." His voice was strangely soft. I hesitated for a second. Even though I'd decided to stop, there was still a feeling of unease. But now, changing my mind and driving off would seem rude. "I'm heading to Cali. If you want to go that way, get in." The man got into the car, bringing with him a strange, indescribable smell. As he sat down, I noticed his clothes looked strangely clean, not like someone who had just been standing on the roadside in the middle of the night. "Thanks for stopping. Not many people do anymore. Especially at this hour," he said as I started driving again. "No problem." "I'm Mark," I replied, trying to shake off the uncomfortable feeling. "David," he said after a pause so long I thought he wouldn't answer. We drove in silence for a while. The radio played a sad Johnny Cash song about a man who lost everything. I glanced at David. In the dim light from the dashboard, I could see he was younger than I thought, early 30s maybe. His dark hair and dark eyes contrasted sharply with his pale skin. "So where are you headed?" I asked, trying to break the heavy silence. "I'm not sure anymore. I've been traveling for a while now. It seems I can't find my way home." "Are you lost?" "You could say that." He turned towards me and his gaze made me shiver. "Do you ever feel like you're stuck, Mark? Like you're trapped in a single moment, and no matter how hard you try, you can't get out?" The question caught me off guard. "I'm not sure what you mean." "I'm dead, Mark. I died and I can't move on," David said, his voice terrifyingly calm. My heart beat faster. I tried to laugh, but it sounded more like a wheeze. "You're alive. Death isn't what people imagine. It's not an end. It's just a prolonged moment. And I'm stuck in my moment," he continued. I gripped the steering wheel tighter, feeling my palms start to sweat. "How do you need help?" I asked cautiously, silently calculating the distance to the next town where I could find a way out of this situation. David looked out the window for a long time before answering. "I don't know." I shifted in my seat, feeling uncomfortable. The car's heater was running full blast, but I still felt cold. "You know, I used to be a salesman. Like you," David suddenly said. I flinched. "How did you know I'm a salesman?" "The sample case." He pointed to the back seat where my leather briefcase containing product samples lay, and the roll of duct tape in the storage compartment. Classic signs of the trade. "Oh," I exhaled, feeling slightly less tense. At least that was a logical explanation. "Yeah, I sell medical equipment. What did you sell?" "Insurance," he said. "Life insurance, actually. Kind of ironic, isn't it? Selling security to people afraid of death, then in the end, learning about it myself much sooner than planned." "What happened to you, David?" I asked, partly out of curiosity, partly to keep him talking. People usually don't cause trouble when they're talking. "One night just like this one," he began, his voice lowering. I was driving home after a long trip, tired, just like you, trying to get home early to see my wife. She was pregnant with our first child. I needed to stay awake, so I rolled down all the windows, cranked up the music, but my eyes were still heavy. Just for a minute, I thought. Just close my eyes for 1 minute. David paused, staring at some invisible point ahead. That's the moment I'm talking about. My eyelids closed. My car hit the median. Everything ended. My body tensed. His words hit too close to home. How many times had I driven tired like this, my own eyelids heavy, jolting awake when I felt the car drifting? You shouldn't tell me things like that while I'm driving, I said, trying to keep my voice calm. So, what happened next? I couldn't stop myself from asking, even though I wasn't sure I wanted to hear the answer. Nothing. No light, no welcoming family. Just the feeling of eyelids closing, the car leaving the lane, knowing everything was about to end. I felt sick, not because of his story, though it was creepy enough, but because of the similarity between our experiences. I too had pushed myself to the limit too often for work, for the desire to get home to Sharon and the kids. Hey, Mark. David leaned closer, his voice dropping to a whisper. Do you want to know what death feels like? Before I could answer, he burst out laughing, a high-pitched cackle that made the hair on my neck stand up. I slammed on the brakes, heart pounding in my chest. The car skidded on the pavement, tires screeching. Without thinking, I threw open the door and scrambled out, nearly tumbling onto the pavement. Behind me, the laughter continued, seeming to chase me through the darkness. And then, from ahead, blinding headlights appeared. A horn blared along with the screech of brakes. I stood there, frozen in the headlights. An ambulance stopped just inches in front of me. 2 men in paramedic uniforms jumped out of the ambulance, their faces shocked. They approached me, eyes searching. What are you doing out here in the middle of the highway at this hour? There was a man in my car. David. He was saying strange things about death, I stammered, breathing heavily, heart still pounding in my chest. The 2 men exchanged glances. You said David? Tall, thin, dark hair, about 30? I nodded. How did you know? His full name is David Mercer, a patient at Riverside Psychiatric Center. He escaped yesterday. My body stiffened. A psychiatric patient? When asked about David's location, I turned, pointing back where I had abandoned the sedan, about half a mile away. I got into the ambulance, riding back to the car with the 2 paramedics. Noticing I was still quite shaken, the paramedic gave me a cup of water and a blanket. According to the paramedic, David could be very unstable. He suffered from severe psychosis, with hallucinations and delusions about death. The paramedic looked sad. David used to be a long-haul driver like you. 2 years ago, he had a serious accident on this highway. His wife was pregnant, and he was trying to get home early. I felt a chill run through my body. So that was true? About his wife and child? Yes, that's the true part of his story. David suffered irreversible brain damage. When he woke up after a 3-month coma, he developed a strange form of psychosis. He believes he died in the accident. David no longer recognizes his wife and child. He's stuck in the moment before the crash. In his mind, his wife is still pregnant, and he's still trying to get home. The ambulance approached the spot where I had left the sedan. Through the window, I saw my car still parked crookedly on the shoulder, the driver's door wide open. When we stopped next to my car, one of the paramedics checked inside and confirmed no one was there. They helped me restart my car, advising me to stop at the nearest rest stop to rest. I nodded, feeling a deep gratitude when I thought about what could have happened. As I drove away, looking in the rearview mirror, I saw the ambulance turn around and continue their search. I took out my phone, called Sharon to let her know I'd be staying overnight at a rest stop and would be home early the next day. That night, lying in the motel room, staring at the ceiling, I thought about David and his fateful moment. I wondered how many other long-haul drivers had encountered him on that lonely road, and how many of them had been saved by his strange warning.